At 3:17 a.m., Lucas Reed's phone shattered the silence of his small apartment with a call that would force him to choose between protecting his son's future and saving the life of the woman who walked away from them both. His ex-wife was dying. Her kidneys were failing, and he was the only match who could save her. But giving her a part of himself meant risking everything he'd built in the 3 years since their divorce, including his ability to be the father his child desperately needed. If you want to know whether a man can forgive the past enough to sacrifice his future, stay with me until the end of this story. Hit that like button and drop a comment telling me what city you're watching from. I want to see how far this story travels. Lucas Reed woke to the sound of his phone vibrating against the wooden nightstand, its harsh buzz cutting through the pre-dawn darkness like a blade. His first instinct was panic, the kind that every single parent knows intimately. He reached for the phone with one hand while his other instinctively moved toward the hallway, already preparing to check on his son. 3:17 a.m., unknown number. His thumb hovered over the decline button. Spam calls didn't respect sleep schedules, and he'd learned long ago that nothing good came from answering unknown numbers in the middle of the night. But something made him hesitate. Some ancient instinct buried deep in his chest whispered that this call was different. He answered. "Is this Lucas Reed?" The voice was crisp, professional, female, a nurse maybe, or a doctor. "Yes. Who is this?" "Mr. Reed, this is Sharon Whitmore from Seattle General Hospital. I'm calling regarding Maya Reed. She was admitted to our emergency department approximately 40 minutes ago, following a severe motor vehicle accident. You're listed as her emergency contact." The words hit him like physical blows. Maya. Accident. Emergency. We've been divorced for 3 years, Lucas said, his voice rough with sleep and confusion. "Why would I still be her emergency contact?" "I can't speak to that, Mr. Reed. What I can tell you is that Ms. Reed is currently in critical condition. She suffered multiple injuries in the collision, and she's being prepped for emergency surgery as we speak. The attending physician believes you should be informed of her condition." Lucas sat up fully now, his heart hammering against his ribs. The small bedroom of his apartment suddenly felt suffocating. Through the thin walls, he could hear the hum of his neighbor's refrigerator, the distant wail of sirens somewhere in the city. Normal sounds, the world continuing as if it hadn't just tilted sideways. "How bad is it?" There was a pause. Sharon Whitmore was choosing her words carefully. "She's stable for the moment, but her condition is serious. Both kidneys sustained significant trauma. The surgical team is working to assess the full extent of her injuries." "Mr. Reed, I know this is difficult, but is there any way you could come to the hospital? There are decisions that may need to be made, and—" "I have a son," Lucas interrupted. "He's 6. I can't just leave him in the middle of the night." "I understand. Is there someone who could stay with him?" Lucas closed his eyes. His mother lived 2 hours away. His brother worked nights. The network of people he could call at 3:17 in the morning was embarrassingly small, a side effect of 3 years spent building a life focused entirely on stability and survival. "Give me an hour," he finally said. "I'll figure something out." After Sharon Whitmore ended the call with promises to update him when he arrived, Lucas sat in the darkness of his bedroom, phone still pressed to his ear, listening to the silence. Maya was hurt. Maya was in surgery. Maya, who had walked out of their apartment 38 months ago with 2 suitcases and tears streaming down her face, promising she couldn't do this anymore. Maya, who had signed divorce papers with shaking hands in a lawyer's office that smelled like old coffee and disappointment. Maya, who had slowly faded from their lives until she became a bi-weekly video call and awkward handoffs in grocery store parking lots. Maya was dying. Lucas stood and moved quietly down the hallway to his son's room. Noah slept the way all 6-year-olds sleep, sprawled across his twin bed like gravity had failed him mid-flight, one arm dangling off the edge, his favorite stuffed dinosaur wedged under his chin. In the soft glow of the nightlight shaped like a rocket ship, Noah's face was peaceful, unmarked by the complications of adult life. How do you explain to a child that the mother who already left once might leave permanently this time? Lucas pulled out his phone and scrolled through his contacts. His thumb landed on a name he hadn't called in months. Jennifer Park, a neighbor from the floor below who had a daughter around Noah's age. They'd exchanged favors before, watching each other's kids during doctor's appointments or emergency work calls. It was 3:24 a.m., which made this request outrageous, but Lucas was out of options. She answered on the fifth ring, her voice thick with sleep. "Lucas? What's wrong?" "Jen, I'm so sorry to wake you. I have an emergency. Maya, my ex-wife, she's been in an accident. She's in surgery. I need to get to the hospital, but I don't have anyone to watch Noah." The sleep cleared from Jennifer's voice immediately. "Oh my God, is she okay?" "I don't know. They wouldn't tell me much over the phone." "Bring him down, right now. Don't even wake him if you don't have to. I'll put him on Mia's floor in sleeping bags. They'll think it's an adventure when they wake up." The relief that flooded through Lucas was almost painful. "Jen, I owe you. You owe me nothing. Go, take care of this. We'll handle Noah." 15 minutes later, Lucas carried his still sleeping son down the stairs to Jennifer's apartment. Noah stirred only slightly when Lucas laid him on the cushioned sleeping bag Jennifer had already prepared, then immediately burrowed back into sleep with the adaptability of childhood. Jennifer, standing in her doorway in a bathrobe with her hair in a messy bun, squeezed Lucas's arm. "Call me when you know something," she said. "And Lucas, whatever happened between you two, she's still Noah's mom. It's okay to care." Lucas nodded, not trusting himself to speak, and headed for his car. The drive to Seattle General took 32 minutes through empty streets slicked with spring rain. Lucas kept his hands at 10 and 2 on the steering wheel, focusing on the mechanics of driving to keep his mind from spiraling into the 100 questions he couldn't answer. Why was he still her emergency contact? Had she meant to change it and never got around to it, or had she kept it deliberately? Why did that possibility make his chest feel tight? The hospital emergency entrance was bright and sterile, all fluorescent lights and the smell of antiseptic. Lucas approached the reception desk where a young man with tired eyes looked up from a computer screen. "I'm Lucas Reed. I got a call about Maya Reed." The young man's fingers flew across the keyboard. "Just a moment. I'll page the nurse who called you." Lucas stood in the waiting area, surrounded by the universal anxiety of emergency rooms. The worried parents with a feverish toddler, the elderly man holding a blood-soaked cloth to his hand, the teenager with a possible broken ankle. Everyone waiting, everyone trying not to imagine worst-case scenarios. Sharon Whitmore appeared within minutes, and Lucas recognized her voice before she even introduced herself. She was in her 50s, with graying hair pulled back in a practical ponytail and eyes that had seen too many emergencies to be shocked by anything. "Mr. Reed, thank you for coming. I know this is unexpected. How is she?" Sharon gestured for him to follow her through a set of double doors into the restricted area beyond the waiting room. They walked past curtained examination bays, past machines that beeped and hummed, past the controlled chaos of overnight emergency medicine. "The surgery is still underway," Sharon explained as they walked. "The accident was severe, T-bone collision at a major intersection. The other driver ran a red light at high speed. Maya's car was struck on the driver's side. She suffered a concussion, 3 broken ribs, a fractured left arm, and significant internal trauma." Lucas felt each injury like a punch. "You said her kidneys." Sharon stopped outside a small consultation room and turned to face him. Her expression was carefully neutral, the practiced face of someone who delivered bad news for a living. "Both kidneys sustained damage from the impact. The surgical team is working to repair what they can, but Mr. Reed, I need you to understand the severity of the situation. There's a significant possibility that one or both kidneys may fail completely. If that happens, Maya will need dialysis. Long term, she may need a transplant." The word hung in the air between them like a weight. "Transplant." "I don't understand," Lucas said slowly. "Why are you telling me this? I'm her ex-husband. We don't even... we co-parent, but we're not involved in each other's lives anymore." Sharon's expression softened slightly. "I'm telling you because you're the only person listed in her emergency contacts besides her mother, who we've been unable to reach. And I'm telling you because if Maya needs a kidney transplant, family members are usually the first potential donors we test." The implications settled over Lucas like a heavy coat. "You want to know if I'd be willing to be tested, to donate?" "I'm not asking for any commitments right now," Sharon said carefully. "But it's information you should have. The reality is that if both kidneys fail, finding a compatible donor could be the difference between life and death. Lucas leaned against the wall of the narrow hallway, his mind racing. Kidney donation, giving a part of his body to Maya, the woman who had told him she didn't love him enough to stay, the woman who had chosen her freedom over their family, the woman who was currently fighting for her life in an operating room 30 feet away. "Can I see her?" he asked, "after the surgery?" "Once she's stable and moved to recovery, yes. But Mr. Reed, that could be hours. You might want to." "I'll wait." Sharon studied him for a moment, then nodded. "There's a surgical waiting area on the 3rd floor. I'll make sure someone updates you as soon as we know more." The surgical waiting area was exactly what Lucas expected. Uncomfortable chairs arranged in clusters, outdated magazines on low tables, a television mounted in the corner playing morning news on mute. A coffee station in the corner offered stale, regular, or staler decaf. Lucas poured himself a cup of something that barely qualified as coffee and sat in a chair facing the hallway, where he could see anyone who approached. He pulled out his phone. 4:42 a.m. In an hour and a half, Noah would wake up in Jennifer's apartment, confused and looking for his father. Lucas sent a text to Jennifer. "Still at hospital. Surgery ongoing. I'll call when I know more. Thank you for everything." The response came almost immediately. "Noah's fine. Take your time. Sending strength." Lucas set his phone on the chair beside him and stared at the far wall, where someone had hung a generic landscape painting of mountains and a lake. He tried not to think about the last real conversation he'd had with Maya 6 months ago, when they'd argued about Noah's school schedule. She'd wanted to take him on a 2-week vacation during the school year. Lucas had said no. She'd accused him of being controlling. He'd accused her of being irresponsible. They'd ended the call angry, and the next exchange had been curt text messages about pickup times. That couldn't be the last real thing they'd said to each other. An hour passed. Then 2. Lucas watched the sun rise through the waiting room windows, the sky shifting from black to deep blue to the pale gray of early morning. Other people came and went. A woman waiting for news about her father's heart surgery, a couple huddled together while their daughter was in the ICU, an elderly man who sat alone, staring at nothing. At 6:47 a.m., a surgeon in blue scrubs walked into the waiting room. She was younger than Lucas expected, maybe mid-30s, with dark hair tucked under a surgical cap, and exhaustion evident in the lines around her eyes. "Lucas Reed?" He stood immediately. "That's me." She crossed the room and extended her hand. "I'm Dr. Simmons. I led the surgical team working on Maya." Lucas shook her hand, his own trembling slightly. "How is she?" "The surgery went as well as could be expected, given the severity of her injuries. We were able to stabilize her condition. The fractures are set, the internal bleeding is controlled, and she's been moved to the ICU for monitoring." Relief washed through Lucas, so intense it made his knees weak. "She's going to be okay, Doctor." Simmons' expression remained serious. "She survived the surgery, which is significant, but I need to be clear with you about her kidney function. We did everything we could to preserve the tissue, but both kidneys sustained substantial damage. Right now, we're monitoring her closely to see if they'll recover function on their own. And if they don't? If they don't, she'll need dialysis while we wait for a transplant. I understand the nurse already discussed this possibility with you." Lucas nodded. "She mentioned I might be tested as a potential donor." Dr. Simmons studied him carefully. "That's a decision you'd need to make after considerable thought and discussion with your own medical team. Kidney donation is major surgery with its own risks and long-term implications. But yes, if you're willing, you would be among the first people we'd test for compatibility." "What are her chances without a transplant?" "Dialysis can sustain life indefinitely, but quality of life is significantly better with a functioning transplant. And the reality is that the wait list for deceased donor kidneys can be years long. Living donors, when compatible, offer the best outcomes." Lucas sat back down heavily. Dr. Simmons remained standing, giving him space to process. "Can I see her?" Lucas asked finally. "She's sedated right now, but yes. Once we have her fully settled in the ICU, someone will come get you. Mr. Reed, I know this is overwhelming. Take the time you need to think about everything." After Dr. Simmons left, Lucas called Jennifer to check on Noah. She answered on the first ring. He's fine, she said before Lucas could ask. He woke up, was momentarily confused, then immediately started playing Legos with Mia. I told him you had to help with a work emergency and you'd explain later. He accepted this completely and asked if he could have chocolate chip pancakes. Despite everything, Lucas felt himself smile. You're a miracle worker. I'm a mom, same thing. How's Maya? Out of surgery, stable, but there are complications. Do you need me to keep Noah longer? Lucas checked the time. 7:03 a.m. Would that be completely unreasonable? I want to see Maya when she's settled, talk to her doctors, figure out what happens next. Lucas, keep him as long as you need. I'll take both kids to the park, tire them out, feed them lunch. You focus on what you need to focus on. After ending the call, Lucas stood and walked to the window. Below, the city was waking up. Commuters heading to work, buses running their routes, the ordinary machinery of life continuing regardless of personal catastrophes. Somewhere down there, the driver who had run the red light was probably in a different hospital, or maybe in police custody, completely unaware that their moment of recklessness had created this impossible situation. A young nurse appeared in the waiting room doorway. Mr. Reed, we have Mrs. Reed settled in the ICU now. You can see her, but please understand she's heavily sedated. She won't be able to respond. Lucas followed the nurse through a maze of hallways to the ICU, a unit of private rooms surrounding a central nurses' station, each room fronted with glass walls and filled with monitoring equipment. The nurse led him to room 7 and stepped aside. Maya lay in the hospital bed, looking impossibly small and fragile against the white sheets. Her left arm was casted from wrist to elbow. An oxygen cannula fed into her nose. IV lines ran from both arms to bags hanging on poles. Monitors beeped softly, tracking heart rate, blood pressure, oxygen levels. Her face was pale, decorated with small cuts and the beginning of bruises. But she was breathing, she was alive. Lucas pulled a chair close to the bed and sat down. He hadn't been this close to Maya in years. Their interactions had become so carefully choreographed, brief, polite exchanges focused entirely on Noah. Before that, the divorce process had kept them separate, communicating through lawyers. The last time they'd been alone together, truly alone, was the night she'd told him she was leaving. They'd been in their old apartment, the one they'd rented when Noah was born. Lucas had just put Noah to bed. Maya was sitting at their kitchen table, and he'd known from the look on her face that something was wrong. I can't do this anymore, she'd said, her voice barely above a whisper. Can't do what? But he'd known. Some part of him had known for months. This, us, the fighting, the silence, the way we've become strangers who happen to live in the same place. Lucas had sat down across from her, his heart already breaking. We can fix this, we can go to counseling, we can try. We did try. We've been trying for 2 years, Lucas, and it's not working. All we do is hurt each other. I don't want Noah growing up thinking this is what love looks like. So you're just giving up? You're just walking away? I'm choosing to leave before we destroy each other completely. The conversation had lasted 3 hours. They'd said terrible things to each other, accusations and resentments that had been building for years. By the end, they'd both been crying. But Maya had been resolute. She loved him, she'd said, but not enough. Not in the way that made the hard parts worth it. Lucas had signed the divorce papers 6 months later, each signature feeling like betrayal and relief in equal measure. Now, looking at her unconscious form in the hospital bed, Lucas felt the weight of all those unresolved feelings pressing against his chest. Anger and grief and a stubborn, persistent tenderness that had never quite disappeared. She'd hurt him, she'd chosen to leave. But she was Noah's mother, and some part of him, the part that remembered falling in love with her laugh, with the way she sang off-key in the shower, with her fierce determination to make the world better, that part had never stopped caring. A doctor Lucas didn't recognize entered the room, checking the monitors and making notes on a tablet. She acknowledged Lucas with a brief nod. How long until she wakes up? Lucas asked. We'll begin reducing the sedation in a few hours. She should regain consciousness this afternoon, though she'll be groggy and disoriented at first. Are you family? Ex-husband. I'm listed as her emergency contact. The doctor nodded without judgment. We'll call you when she's more alert. There's no need to sit here while she's sedated. Get some rest. Eat something. But Lucas didn't move. He stayed in that chair watching Maya breathe, trying to reconcile this broken version of her with his memories. Time moved strangely in the ICU. Minutes felt like hours. Hours felt like minutes. Nurses came and went. Machines beeped their monotonous rhythms. Beyond the glass walls, the hospital continued its tireless work. Around 10:30 a.m., Lucas's phone buzzed with a text from Jennifer. Playground successful, both kids exhausted. Noah asks when you're coming home. I told him probably this afternoon. Does that work? Lucas responded, yes, thank you. I'll pick him up around 2. He needed to be there when Maya woke up. Needed to understand what this all meant. Needed to hear from her own lips why she'd kept him as her emergency contact, whether it was intentional or just something she'd forgotten to change. At 11:47 a.m., a different nurse entered, this one middle-aged with kind eyes behind wire-rimmed glasses. She checked Maya's vitals, then turned to Lucas. We're going to start bringing her out of sedation now. It'll be gradual. She should be responsive within the hour. Lucas nodded, his mouth suddenly dry. The nurse adjusted something on one of the IV lines, made a note on her tablet, then left Lucas alone with Maya again. He watched her face for signs of change. Minutes passed. Then, slowly, he saw her eyelids flutter. Her fingers twitched against the sheets. Her breathing pattern changed, becoming less regular, more natural. Maya? Lucas said softly. Can you hear me? Her eyes opened slowly, unfocused at first. She blinked several times, trying to orient herself. Her gaze wandered around the room, the monitors, the IV lines, the sterile walls, before finally landing on Lucas. Confusion flickered across her face, then recognition, then something that might have been fear or might have been hope. Lucas? Her voice was rough, barely more than a whisper. I'm here. You're at Seattle General. You were in a car accident. She tried to move and winced, pain registering across her features. Everything hurts. Don't try to move. You have broken ribs and a fractured arm. You had surgery. Maya closed her eyes, absorbing this information. When she opened them again, they were clearer, more focused. Why are you here? It was the question Lucas had been asking himself all morning. You had me listed as your emergency contact. The hospital called. I did? She seemed genuinely surprised. Then, after a pause, I did. I never changed it. I meant to, but it's okay. I'm here now. Tears gathered in Maya's eyes, spilling over to run down her temples into her hair. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry, Lucas. For everything. For the divorce. For leaving. For all of it. Lucas reached out instinctively, then hesitated, his hand hovering in the air between them. Finally, he let it rest on the bed rail instead. Don't apologize right now. Just focus on getting better. Is Noah okay? Does he know? Noah's fine. He's with a neighbor. I haven't told him yet. I wanted to understand what was happening first. Doctor. Simmons entered the room, followed by the kind-eyed nurse. She smiled, seeing Maya awake. Miss Reed, welcome back. I'm Dr. Simmons. I was the lead surgeon on your case. How are you feeling? Like I was hit by a truck, Maya said weakly. You essentially were. A very large sedan going approximately 45 miles per hour. You're lucky to be alive. Dr. Simmons pulled up a stool and sat down, her expression becoming more serious. Maya, I need to talk to you about your kidneys. Lucas watched Maya's face as Dr. Simmons explained the damage, the uncertainty, the possibility of dialysis and transplant. He saw fear replace confusion, saw her trying to be brave and failing, saw the moment she truly understood how close she'd come to dying. Family members are typically our first option for donor testing, Dr. Simmons was saying. Your mother hasn't been reachable, but Lucas has been here all morning. Maya's gaze swung to Lucas, her eyes wide. No, absolutely not. Lucas, no. We haven't discussed it, Lucas said quickly. Nobody's made any decisions. There's nothing to discuss, Maya said, her voice gaining strength despite the pain evident in every word. You have a son to take care of. You're not risking your health for me. I won't let you. Dr. Simmons held up a hand. Let's not get ahead of ourselves. First, we wait and see if your kidneys recover function on their own. If they don't, we explore all options. Compatibility testing is just that, testing, one step at a time. After Dr. Simmons left, silence settled over the room. Lucas and Maya stared at each other across the space of 3 years' distance and a morning's worth of revelations. "You should go," Maya said finally. "Go home to Noah. He needs you." "Do you need anything? Is there anyone I should call?" "My mother's probably on a cruise somewhere. She'll turn up eventually." "Lucas, thank you for coming. You didn't have to." "Yes," Lucas said quietly. "I did." He stood, preparing to leave, but Maya's voice stopped him. "Lucas? Why did you come? Really? After everything?" Lucas turned back to face her. The truth was too complicated for a hospital room, too tangled with resentment and forgiveness, and the stubborn fact that caring about someone doesn't stop just because loving them becomes impossible. So he gave her the simplest version. "Because you're Noah's mother, and because no matter what happened between us, I never wanted you to be hurt." He left before she could respond, walking through the ICU and down the elevator and out into the parking garage where his car waited. Only when he was sitting in the driver's seat with the door closed did he let himself fully feel the emotional weight of the morning. His hands were shaking, his breathing was unsteady. Maya was alive, but she might need a kidney. His kidney. Lucas drove to Jennifer's apartment and collected Noah, who launched himself into Lucas's arms with the uncomplicated affection of childhood. "Did you fix the work emergency?" Noah asked. "I'm still working on it, buddy, but everything's going to be okay." That night, after Noah was asleep, Lucas sat at his kitchen table with his laptop open. He researched kidney donation, the surgery, the risks, the recovery time, the long-term effects. The information was overwhelming. Donors typically had good outcomes, but there were risks. Infection, bleeding, long-term kidney function concerns, and the recovery was significant, weeks before returning to normal activity. How could he risk that when he was Noah's only stable parent? But how could he not, if Maya needed him? Lucas closed the laptop and pressed his palms against his eyes. Tomorrow, he would call the hospital for an update. Tomorrow, he would figure out what to tell Noah. Tomorrow, he would start making impossible decisions. But tonight, he sat in the silence of his apartment and let himself acknowledge a truth he'd been avoiding for 3 years. Some part of him had never stopped loving Maya Reed, and that was going to make everything so much more complicated. The truth followed Lucas through the next 3 days like a shadow he couldn't shake. He went through the motions of normal life, making Noah breakfast, dropping him at school, working his shifts at the architectural firm where he'd been employed for the past 5 years. But his mind remained stuck in that ICU room, watching Maya's face as she realized the severity of her condition. On the 4th morning after the accident, Lucas's phone rang while he was helping Noah tie his shoes. The caller ID showed Seattle General Hospital. "Mr. Reed, this is Dr. Simmons. Do you have a moment to talk?" Lucas glanced at Noah, who was focused intently on creating bunny ears with his shoelaces. "Give me just a second." He stepped into the hallway, pulling the apartment door partially closed behind him. "I'm here." "Maya's kidney function isn't recovering the way we'd hoped. We've started dialysis. I'd like to discuss the transplant process with you, if you're still willing to be tested for compatibility." The words settled in Lucas's chest like stones. "When would you need to do the testing?" "The sooner the better. We can schedule you for initial blood work this week. If you're a match, there would be additional tests, tissue typing, cross-matching, a full medical workup to ensure you're healthy enough to donate. And if I'm not a match, then we explore other options. But Lucas, I want to be direct with you. Living donor transplants have significantly better outcomes than waiting for a deceased donor. The average wait time in Washington state is 3 to 5 years. Maya doesn't have that kind of time to live comfortably on dialysis." Through the partially open door, Lucas could see Noah standing up, his shoes successfully tied, beaming with pride at his accomplishment. 6 years old, starting to read chapter books, learning to ride a bike without training wheels, growing up so fast and needing his father present and healthy for all of it. "I need some time to think about this," Lucas said. "Of course. But, Mr. Reed, time is something we don't have in abundance. Call me when you've made a decision." That evening, after Noah was in bed, Lucas called his mother. Sandra Reed lived in Olympia, 2 hours south, in the house where Lucas had grown up. She answered on the second ring, her voice warm with surprise. Lucas, this is a nice surprise. How's my grandson? He's good, Mom, growing like a weed, but I need to talk to you about something. He told her everything, the accident, the failed kidneys, the possibility of donation. Sandra listened without interrupting, a skill she'd perfected over years of being a high school counselor. When he finished, she was quiet for a long moment. What does your gut tell you? She finally asked. My gut is tied in knots. Part of me thinks I'd be crazy to risk major surgery when I'm Noah's only stable parent. Part of me can't imagine telling him someday that his mother died and I could have saved her but chose not to. Those aren't the only two parts, though, are they? Lucas closed his eyes. His mother had always been able to see through him. No. You still care about her. I shouldn't, after everything that... Lucas, honey, feelings don't follow divorce decrees. You loved Maya for a long time. You built a life with her. You can acknowledge that caring about her doesn't mean you want to reconcile or that you've forgotten the pain. What would Dad have done? Lucas asked, though his father had been gone for 8 years now, lost to a sudden heart attack that had shattered their family's sense of security. Sandra's laugh was soft and sad. Your father would have wrestled with it for exactly as long as you're wrestling with it. Then he would have done what he thought was right, regardless of how scared it made him. You're more like him than you know. After they said their goodbyes, Lucas sat on his couch in the dim light of a single lamp and pulled out his phone. He scrolled through old photos, pictures from before the divorce that he'd never been able to delete. Maya hugely pregnant, glowing with happiness. Maya holding newborn Noah, exhausted and radiant. The three of them at the zoo, at the beach, at birthday parties. Evidence of a life that had once been whole. His finger hovered over Maya's contact information. They'd texted 2 days ago, brief messages about her condition. She was stable, uncomfortable, starting to accept the reality of dialysis. She'd asked about Noah, and Lucas had sent a photo of him at the park, hair windblown, smile huge. Now Lucas typed out a new message. I want to get tested. He stared at the words for a full minute before deleting them. This conversation needed to happen in person. The next morning, Lucas dropped Noah at school and drove to the hospital. He'd called ahead, and the nurses had confirmed that Maya was awake and having a relatively good day. When he entered her room, she was sitting up in bed, her laptop open, trying to work despite the dialysis port in her arm. You shouldn't be working, Lucas said from the doorway. Maya looked up, surprise flickering across her face. Lucas, I didn't know you were coming. I should have called. He stepped into the room, suddenly uncertain. Is this a bad time? No, come in. I'm just trying to keep up with emails. My boss has been understanding, but I can't just disappear from my projects indefinitely. Lucas pulled a chair close to the bed. Maya closed her laptop, giving him her full attention. She looked better than she had 4 days ago, color returning to her cheeks, the bruises fading from purple to yellow-green, but there were new shadows under her eyes, the kind that came from pain and fear and uncertainty. Dr. Simmons called me, Lucas said. She told me your kidneys aren't recovering. Maya's expression shuddered. She shouldn't have called you. I told her not to. I'm listed as your emergency contact. She has every right to keep me informed. Lucas, we've been over this. You're not donating a kidney to me. End of discussion. It's not your decision to make. The hell it isn't. It's my life, my medical situation, my choice about who I accept organs from. Lucas leaned forward, keeping his voice calm despite the frustration building in his chest. And it's my body, my organ, my choice about whether to donate it. You don't get to make this decision for me, Maya. They stared at each other, the familiar pattern of their old arguments crackling in the space between them. This was how it had always been. Both of them stubborn, both of them convinced they were right, neither willing to bend. Why? Maya asked finally, her voice breaking slightly. Why would you even consider this? I left you, Lucas. I destroyed our marriage. I hurt you and Noah. Why would you risk your health for me? Lucas took a breath, choosing his words carefully. Because you're Noah's mother. Because he needs you in his life, even if our marriage didn't work. Because, he paused, then pushed forward with the harder truth. Because some part of me still cares what happens to you. I don't know if that makes me stupid or sentimental or just human, but it's the truth. Tears spilled down Maya's cheeks. She wiped them away angrily, frustrated by her own emotion. You should hate me. I tried that. It didn't stick. Lucas, kidney donation is major surgery. There are risks. What if something goes wrong? What if you have complications? What happens to Noah if his mother dies? Lucas interrupted. What happens when he asks me why I didn't help you when I could have? What do I tell him then? Maya pressed her hands over her face, her shoulders shaking. Lucas resisted the urge to touch her, to offer comfort. They weren't those people anymore. They didn't have the right to physical reassurance. I'm getting tested, Lucas said quietly. That's what I came here to tell you. The testing doesn't commit me to anything. It just tells us if I'm even a viable option. If I'm not a match, the decision is made for us. If I am, then we'll figure out what comes next. And if you're a match and you decide to go through with it and something goes wrong, Maya lowered her hands, her eyes red-rimmed and fierce. If you end up with complications, if you can't work, if you need help taking care of Noah, then I'll deal with it. Maya, I've spent 3 years building a life focused on stability and caution, playing it safe. And you know what? It's been good for Noah. It's been good for me. But this isn't about playing it safe. This is about doing what's right. Maya shook her head slowly. I don't deserve this. I don't deserve your kindness. This isn't about what you deserve. It's about what Noah needs and what I can live with. A nurse entered to check Maya's vitals, interrupting the moment. Lucas stood, preparing to leave, but Maya's voice stopped him. Lucas, thank you for even considering this. I know it's not an easy choice. He nodded and left before the emotion in his throat could turn into words he wasn't ready to say. The compatibility testing began 2 days later. Lucas sat in a medical office while a phlebotomist drew what felt like an enormous amount of blood. The woman making small talk about the weather while she filled vial after vial with dark red liquid. After the blood draw came a physical examination, a chest X-ray, an EKG, a urine test. They were looking for any reason Lucas wouldn't be a suitable donor: heart problems, kidney disease, infections, anything that would disqualify him. How long until we know if I'm a match? Lucas asked the transplant coordinator, a warm woman named Patricia who explained each step of the process. Initial blood type compatibility we'll know within a few days. If that matches, we move on to tissue typing, which takes about a week, then cross-matching to ensure there won't be a rejection reaction. The entire process typically takes 2 to 3 weeks. 2 to 3 weeks of waiting, of uncertainty, of trying to maintain normal life while this enormous question hung over everything. Lucas told Noah about the accident that evening, sitting on the edge of his son's bed after story time. Mommy was hurt in a car crash, he explained, keeping his voice steady and calm. She's in the hospital, but she's going to be okay. Noah's eyes went wide. Is she hurting? She was, but the doctors are taking very good care of her. She's getting better every day. Can we visit her? Lucas hadn't considered this. The thought of Noah seeing Maya in a hospital bed, connected to dialysis machines, bruised and fragile, it made his protective instincts flare, but Maya would want to see Noah, and Noah deserved to see his mother. How about we call her tomorrow, see if she feels up to a visit? Noah nodded seriously, processing this information with the gravity only children can bring to adult situations. Daddy, are you scared? The question caught Lucas off guard. A little bit. But being scared is okay. It just means we care about someone. I care about Mommy. I know, buddy. Me too. When Maya answered Lucas's call the next day and he mentioned bringing Noah for a visit, her immediate response was resistance. I don't want him to see me like this. It'll scare him. He's already scared, Lucas countered. He knows something's wrong. Seeing you, even in a hospital, will be better than his imagination. They compromised on a short visit, scheduled for a Saturday morning when Maya's dialysis session would be finished and she'd have maximum energy. Lucas spent the drive preparing Noah, explaining about the hospital equipment, the tubes and machines, reminding him that Mommy was healing and everything he saw was helping her get better. When they walked into Maya's room, Noah hesitated only for a moment before running to the bed. Maya's face transformed, all the pain and fear disappearing behind pure joy as she wrapped her good arm around her son. Hi, baby. I missed you so much. I missed you too, Mommy. Daddy said you got hurt by a car. I did, but I'm getting stronger every day, see? I can hug you. Lucas watched them from the doorway, something tightening in his chest. This was why he was getting tested. This moment, right here. Whatever had broken between him and Maya didn't change the fact that Noah needed both his parents. They stayed for 45 minutes. Noah chattered about school, about the science project he was working on, about the new video game he'd beaten. Maya listened with complete attention, asking questions, laughing at his jokes, being fully present in a way she hadn't always been during their marriage. Lucas had forgotten this version of her, the mother who could focus entirely on their son, making him feel like the center of the universe. As they were preparing to leave, Noah hugged Maya carefully, mindful of her injuries. Get better fast, Mommy. I want you to come to my soccer game next month. I'll do my best, sweetheart. After Noah ran ahead to push the elevator button, Maya caught Lucas's hand. Thank you for bringing him. I needed that. Her fingers were warm against his. Lucas nodded, not trusting himself to speak, and gently extracted his hand. The call from Dr. Simmons came on a Tuesday afternoon while Lucas was in a meeting about a commercial building redesign. He excused himself and stepped into the hallway, his heart pounding. Lucas, I have the initial test results. Your blood type is compatible with Maya's. Relief and terror flooded through him in equal measure. What's next? Tissue typing. We need you to come in for another blood draw, and then we wait for the lab results. If the tissue markers align well, we'll move forward with the cross-match testing. And if they don't align, then you wouldn't be a suitable donor and we'd explore other options for Maya. But Lucas, initial blood type compatibility is a good sign. There's a reasonable chance you could be a match. That evening, Lucas called his mother again. She listened to the update, then asked the question he'd been avoiding. Have you thought about what happens after, if you donate? What do you mean? I mean, this is going to create a connection between you and Maya that doesn't exist right now. You'll have given her a part of yourself. Literally. That's not something you can ignore or compartmentalize. It's going to change things. Things are already changed. She almost died. I know. I'm just saying. Be prepared for the emotional complexity. This isn't like loaning someone money or helping them move. This is profound, Lucas. Make sure you're ready for what it means. The tissue typing results took 9 days. 9 days of Lucas going through his routine while his mind spun through scenarios. He researched donor recovery times. He looked into short-term disability policies. He made contingency plans for Noah's care if complications arose. He was trying to control the uncontrollable, and he knew it, but the planning gave him something to focus on besides the fear. When Dr. Simmons called with the results, Lucas was at Noah's soccer practice, watching his son chase the ball with more enthusiasm than skill. The tissue typing shows a strong match, Dr. Simmons said without preamble. 6-antigen match. That's excellent compatibility, Lucas. There's one more test, the cross-match, but I'm optimistic. When would the surgery be? If I decide to go through with it, we'd schedule it as soon as possible after the final test results. The sooner we get Maya a functioning kidney, the better her long-term prognosis. But Lucas, I need to make sure you understand what you're committing to. The surgery itself takes 3 to 4 hours. You'll be hospitalized for 2 to 3 days. Full recovery takes 6 to 8 weeks. There are risks: bleeding, infection, blood clots. Most donors do very well, but there's always uncertainty. I understand. Do you? Because once we schedule this surgery, Maya will be preparing for it. She'll be hopeful. Backing out at that point would be emotionally devastating for her. Lucas watched Noah crash into another player, both boys going down in a tangle of limbs before popping back up, laughing. I'm not going to back out. Then let's schedule the final cross-match test. That night, after Noah was asleep, Lucas poured himself a glass of whiskey, something he rarely did, and sat on his small balcony overlooking the parking lot. The night was cool, stars obscured by city light pollution. He thought about his father, who had died too young, too suddenly. He thought about the fragility of life and the weight of choices. His phone buzzed with a text from Maya. Dr. Simmons told me about the tissue typing. Lucas, you don't have to do this. I release you from any obligation you feel. He stared at the message for a long time before responding. It's not about obligation, it's about choice. And I'm choosing this. Her reply came quickly. Why? Lucas typed and deleted several responses before settling on the truth. Because Noah deserves to have his mother, and because I need to be able to look at myself in the mirror. The 3 dots indicating she was typing appeared, then disappeared, then appeared again. Finally, I don't know how to thank you. You don't need to thank me. You need to get healthy. The cross-match test was scheduled for the following Monday. It was the final hurdle, the test that would determine whether Lucas's immune system would recognize Maya's cells as foreign and reject the transplant. If this test came back negative, meaning no incompatibility, they would be cleared for surgery. Lucas sat in the medical lab while they drew more blood, his mind strangely quiet. He'd moved past fear into something like acceptance. Whatever happened next, he'd made his choice. The rest was out of his hands. 3 days later, Dr. Simmons called with the final results. Negative cross-match. Lucas, you're a perfect match for Maya. If you're still willing to proceed, we can schedule the transplant surgery. Lucas closed his eyes. I'm willing. I'm going to connect you with Patricia, our transplant coordinator. She'll walk you through the pre-surgical process, get you scheduled, answer any questions. Lucas, you're doing a remarkable thing. I'm doing what needs to be done. Patricia called within the hour, her voice professionally warm as she outlined the next steps. Pre-surgical appointments, final medical clearance, meetings with the surgical team. The surgery was tentatively scheduled for 3 weeks out, enough time to ensure Lucas was in optimal health, but soon enough to get Maya off dialysis before complications developed. You'll need someone to stay with you for at least the first week after surgery, Patricia explained. You won't be able to lift anything heavier than 10 pounds, which includes your son. Do you have family who can help? My mother. She can come stay with us. Good. And you'll need to arrange for someone to be at the hospital the day of surgery. Someone to drive you home to be your advocate if any decisions need to be made. Lucas thought of his small circle of friends, the relationships that had fallen away after the divorce as he'd focused entirely on work and Noah. I'll figure something out. After the call ended, Lucas sat at his kitchen table and made a list of everything he needed to arrange. Time off work. His boss would understand. Childcare for Noah. His mother could handle that. Bills that needed to be paid in advance. Meal prep for recovery. The practical details of upending his life for surgery. His phone rang. Maya. Dr. Simmons told me, she said when he answered. Lucas, I don't have words for what this means. You don't need words, you need to rest and prepare for surgery. I can't stop thinking about what could go wrong. What if there are complications? What if… Maya, don't. We can't think like that. We have to trust the surgeons in the process. She was quiet for a moment. Will you come see me before the surgery? I know we need to talk about logistics, but I need to see you. They met the next evening at a coffee shop near the hospital, neutral ground away from the medical equipment and the weight of hospital walls. Maya arrived first, looking more like herself than she had since the accident. Her arm was still casted, but the bruises had faded, and she'd put on makeup, done her hair. Lucas felt something twist in his chest seeing her this way, remembering the woman he'd fallen in love with. Thank you for meeting me, Maya said as he sat down across from her. Of course. I've been thinking a lot about us, about our marriage, about why it failed, about the things I should have said and didn't. Lucas held up a hand. Maya, we don't have to do this. Yes, we do. Because in 3 weeks, you're going to give me a kidney. You're going to give me a second chance at life. And before that happens, I need you to know that I'm sorry. I'm sorry for how I handled our problems. I'm sorry for shutting down instead of fighting for us. I'm sorry for making you feel like you weren't enough when the truth was I didn't feel like I was enough. The words hung between them, years of hurt and misunderstanding, finally given voice. I wasn't blameless, Lucas said quietly. I was so focused on stability and security that I stopped seeing you. I stopped asking what you needed. I thought if I could just provide enough, if I could just be responsible enough, that would be enough. But marriage isn't about logistics. No, Maya agreed. It's not. They talked for 2 hours, ordering coffee they barely touched, finally saying the things they should have said before lawyers got involved. They talked about expectations and disappointments, about the dreams they'd had that didn't align, about the resentment that had built between them like a wall, brick by brick. "I loved you," Maya said. "I want you to know that. When I left, it wasn't because I stopped loving you. It was because I didn't know how to be married to you without losing myself completely." "I know," Lucas said. "I think part of me always knew, but it still hurt." "I'm sure it did, and I'm sure this—" She gestured between them, encompassing the hospital, the surgery. "The enormity of what he was doing is bringing all that hurt back up." Lucas considered this. "It's complicated. I'm not doing this because I want to get back together or because I'm hoping it will fix what broke. I'm doing this because it's the right thing to do, for Noah, for you, for me, to be able to live with myself. And after? What happens after the surgery? I don't know. We heal. We figure out how to co-parent better. We move forward." Maya nodded slowly. "I can accept that. I just needed you to know that I see what you're doing. I see the sacrifice, and it means everything." As they stood to leave, Maya hesitated, then stepped forward and hugged him, carefully, mindful of her healing ribs and his boundaries. Lucas froze for a moment, then allowed himself to return the embrace. She smelled like jasmine shampoo and hospital soap, familiar and strange all at once. "Whatever happens," Maya whispered, "thank you for being you, for being the kind of man who does the hard right thing instead of the easy wrong thing." Lucas didn't respond. He just held her for one more heartbeat, then stepped back. The next 3 weeks passed in a blur of preparation. Lucas's mother arrived and took over his apartment with the efficiency of a woman who'd raised 3 children and managed a household for decades. She filled the freezer with pre-made meals. She learned Noah's routine. She asked Lucas hundreds of questions about his recovery needs and made lists of everything he'd forgotten to consider. The night before surgery, Lucas lay awake in his bed, staring at the ceiling. In 12 hours, surgeons would cut him open and remove one of his kidneys. In 12 hours, he would cross a threshold he couldn't uncross. Fear sat heavy on his chest, but beneath it was something else, something that felt almost like peace. His phone lit up with a text from Maya. "I can't sleep, too nervous." Lucas responded, "Me either, but we're going to get through this. Thank you, Lucas, for everything. I'll never be able to repay this. Just focus on getting healthy. That's all the repayment I need." He set his phone aside and closed his eyes, willing sleep to come. Tomorrow would change everything. But tonight, he'd made his choice, and he could live with it. That was enough. Lucas woke to his mother's gentle hand on his shoulder at 5 in the morning. The surgery was scheduled for 7, which meant arriving at the hospital by 6 for pre-op preparation. He'd barely slept, drifting in and out of anxious half-dreams, where he was always falling or searching for something he couldn't name. "Coffee's ready?" Sandra said softly. "Nothing to eat, I know, but I thought the smell might help." Lucas sat up, his body feeling heavy and foreign. "Is Noah awake?" "Still sleeping. I'll get him up after you leave. He made you something last night. He wanted me to give it to you this morning." She handed him a folded piece of construction paper. Lucas opened it carefully. Inside, Noah had drawn 3 stick figures in crayon, one tall with brown hair labeled Daddy, one with long hair labeled Mommy, and one small figure in the middle labeled Me. Above them, in his careful 6-year-old handwriting, Noah had written, "Thank you for helping Mommy. You are the bravest. Love, Noah." Lucas's throat tightened. He pressed his palm against the drawing, feeling the waxy texture of the crayons, the slight indent where Noah had pressed hard with the markers. "He understands more than we give him credit for," Sandra said quietly. "I know. That's what scares me." The drive to Seattle General was silent except for the early morning traffic report on the radio. Sandra kept her hand steady on the wheel, but Lucas could see the tension in her shoulders, the way she gripped the steering wheel just a little too tightly. She was scared too, he realized. Scared for her son, even though he was 32 years old and supposedly capable of making his own decisions. At the hospital, they were directed to the surgical preparation area. A nurse named Kelly, young and efficient with kind eyes, got Lucas settled into a pre-op room and began the process of preparing him for surgery. 4th line inserted. Hospital gown exchanged for his street clothes. Compression socks pulled onto his feet to prevent blood clots. Each step made it more real, more inevitable. How are you feeling? Kelly asked as she checked his vital signs. Terrified, Lucas admitted. Is that normal? Completely normal. You're doing something extraordinary and scary. The fear means you understand the gravity of it. But I can tell you that Dr. Patterson, your surgeon, is one of the best. I've seen him perform dozens of these procedures. You're in excellent hands. Dr. Patterson himself appeared 20 minutes later, along with Dr. Simmons. They reviewed the procedure one final time, explained what Lucas could expect during recovery, and asked if he had any last questions. How long until I can pick up my son? Lucas asked. He weighs about 45 pounds. Dr. Patterson smiled. Nothing over 10 pounds for the first 2 weeks. After that, we'll reassess based on how you're healing. Probably 4 to 6 weeks before you're cleared for lifting a child that size. 4 to 6 weeks of not being able to hug Noah properly, not being able to carry him when he was tired, not being able to be fully present as a father. The reality of what he was sacrificing settled over Lucas like a weight. And Maya, he asked, when will I know if the transplant worked? We'll know within hours if her body accepts the kidney, Dr. Simmons answered. But full function can take a few days to establish. The important thing is that you're both going to be in recovery at the same time. You won't be able to see each other immediately after surgery. Sandra, sitting in the corner of the room, spoke up for the first time. When can I see him? After the surgery. Once he's moved to recovery and fully awake, we'll bring you back. Usually about 2 to 3 hours post-op. The anesthesiologist arrived next, a soft-spoken man named Doctor Chen, who explained the process of putting Lucas under and what he might feel as the medication took effect. Then came the consent forms, the final signatures, the point of no return. At 6:47 a.m., they wheeled Lucas toward the operating room. Sandra walked beside the gurney, holding his hand, her face a careful mask of calmness that didn't quite hide the worry in her eyes. I love you, she said as they reached the doors to the surgical suite. Your father would be so proud of you right now. Tell Noah I love him, Lucas managed. Tell him I'll see him soon. Then the doors swung open and Lucas was in the operating room, all bright lights and stainless steel and people in surgical masks moving with practiced efficiency. Someone was adjusting the IV, someone else was positioning his arm. Dr. Chen was saying something about counting backward from 10. Lucas made it to 7 before the world went dark. Somewhere in the hospital, in a different operating room, Maya was being prepared for her own surgery. The transplant would be carefully choreographed, Lucas's kidney removed, transported immediately to Maya's surgical suite, implanted while it was still viable. 2 teams, 2 rooms, 1 organ passing between them like a fragile hope. Lucas didn't dream during surgery. There was only absence, a void of time that passed without his awareness. When consciousness began to return, it came slowly, like surfacing from deep water. Sounds first. The beeping of monitors, the soft conversations of nurses, the hum of medical equipment. Then sensation, the ache in his side where they'd made the incision, the dryness in his throat, the weight of blankets over his legs. He tried to open his eyes and managed only a flutter before exhaustion pulled him back under. The next time he woke, the light had changed. Someone was checking his vitals. A voice was saying his name. Lucas, can you hear me? Squeeze my hand if you can hear me. He managed a weak squeeze. Good. You're in recovery. The surgery went perfectly. Try to rest. Time became strange and elastic. Lucas would surface into awareness for brief moments, his mother's face above him, a nurse adjusting his IV, the pain in his side sharp and insistent, then slip back into medicated sleep. At some point, they moved him to a regular hospital room. At some point, the breathing tube was removed from his throat. At some point, he opened his eyes and actually managed to keep them open. Sandra was sitting in a chair beside his bed, reading a book. When she noticed him watching her, she set the book aside immediately. Hey, sweetheart. Welcome back. Lucas's voice came out as a croak. Water. She held a cup with a straw to his lips, and he took small sips, the cool liquid soothing his ravaged throat. How long? He managed. The surgery was about 4 hours. You've been in recovery for 3 more. It's almost 3 in the afternoon. 7 hours gone, swallowed by surgery and anesthesia. Lucas tried to shift position and gasped as pain lanced through his left side. Don't move too much yet, Sandra cautioned. You have a morphine pump. The button is right here. She guided his hand to the device. Press it when the pain gets bad. Lucas pressed the button and felt the medication flood through his system, dulling the sharp edges of discomfort. Maya? Did it work? Dr. Simmons came by about an hour ago. Maya's surgery went well. The kidney is functioning. They're monitoring her closely, but all the initial signs are positive. Relief washed through Lucas, so intense it brought tears to his eyes. It had worked. She was going to live. The sacrifice had been worth it. Noah? He asked. He's with Jennifer. I told him you're resting and doing great, and you'll call him when you feel up to it. He wanted me to tell you that he loves you, and he's very proud of you. Lucas closed his eyes, letting the morphine and exhaustion pull him back toward sleep. Love him too. Love you, Mom. I know, baby. Rest now. The first day after surgery was a blur of pain management and vital sign checks. Lucas slept in fits and starts, waking disoriented and uncomfortable, pressing the morphine button, drifting off again. Nurses came and went, checking his incision, monitoring his remaining kidney function, encouraging him to take deep breaths to prevent pneumonia. Every movement hurt. Every breath was an effort. His body felt like it had been hit by a truck. On the second day, they made him get out of bed. It was agony. Lucas sat on the edge of the mattress while a physical therapist named Marcus stood by, ready to catch him if he fell. I know it hurts, Marcus said, his voice infuriatingly cheerful. But movement is crucial for recovery. We need to get you walking. Walking seems ambitious, Lucas muttered. We'll start with standing. Come on, let's get you on your feet. With Marcus's help and his mother hovering anxiously nearby, Lucas stood. The room tilted and spun. Pain radiated from his incision across his entire left side, but he stayed upright, gripping Marcus's arm, breathing through the discomfort. Good, Marcus said. Now we're going to walk to the door and back, nice and slow. It took 10 minutes to walk 15 feet. By the time Lucas made it back to bed, he was sweating and shaking, completely exhausted. But he'd done it. He'd taken the first steps toward recovery. Later that afternoon, Dr. Patterson came to check on him. He examined the incision, reviewed Lucas's charts, and nodded with satisfaction. You're doing well. Kidney function is excellent. Your body is adjusting to functioning with one kidney exactly as we hoped. How's the pain? Manageable with the medication. Good. We'll start weaning you off the morphine tomorrow, transition you to oral pain medication. If you continue progressing this well, you should be able to go home in a day or two. After Dr. Patterson left, Lucas asked the question he'd been holding back. Can I see Maya? Is she doing okay? His mother exchanged glances with the nurse who was adjusting his IV. She's 2 floors down in the transplant recovery unit. Dr. Simmons said you could have a brief visit tomorrow if you're both up for it. The next morning, after what felt like a Herculean effort to shower and dress in actual clothes instead of a hospital gown, Marcus returned with a wheelchair. Your chariot awaits, he announced. We're taking a field trip. Lucas lowered himself gingerly into the wheelchair, every muscle in his core screaming in protest. Sandra walked beside them as Marcus wheeled him through the hallways, into an elevator, down 2 floors, through another maze of corridors to the transplant recovery unit. Maya's room was private, filled with even more monitoring equipment than Lucas's own room had been. She was sitting up in bed when they arrived, looking pale and tired, but unmistakably better than she'd looked before the surgery. When she saw Lucas in the wheelchair, her eyes filled with tears. Oh God, Lucas, look at you. Look at you, he countered. You have color in your cheeks. Marcus parked the wheelchair beside Maya's bed and stepped back. Sandra quietly excused herself, giving them privacy. For a long moment, they just looked at each other. 2 people who had once promised forever to each other, who had built a life and a child together, who had fallen apart and rebuilt separately, now connected by this profound and intimate act of sacrifice. How do you feel? Maya asked. Like someone cut me open and took an organ. You? Like someone gave me a miracle I didn't deserve. Fresh tears spilled down her cheeks. Lucas, I don't know how to thank you. I don't know how to even begin to express what this means. You don't need to thank me. Just get healthy. Be there for Noah. That's enough. Maya reached out tentatively, and Lucas took her hand. Her grip was weak but warm. The kidney is working, she said. Dr. Simmons said it started functioning within hours. My creatinine levels are already dropping. She said it's one of the best early responses she's seen. That's good. That's really good. Your kidney saved my life, Lucas. A part of you is inside me, keeping me alive. Her voice broke. That's not something I can ever forget or move past or treat lightly. Lucas squeezed her hand gently. I know, but Maya, we can't let this change everything. We can't let it confuse what we are to each other now. What are we to each other? It was the question Lucas had been avoiding. We're Noah's parents. We're two people who loved each other once and couldn't make it work. He paused, searching for the right words. We're connected now in a way we weren't before. But that doesn't mean we go backward. It doesn't undo the divorce or erase the reasons we split up. Maya nodded slowly, wiping at her tears with her free hand. You're right. I know you're right. But Lucas, things have changed for me. Almost dying changes your perspective. And what you did, knowing you were willing to give up a part of yourself to save me, even after everything I put you through, it made me realize things I'd been refusing to see. Maya, I'm not asking for anything, she interrupted quickly. I'm not asking you to give me another chance or to pretend the last 3 years didn't happen. I just need you to know that I see you differently now. I see what I lost when I walked away. And I see what an incredible man you've become, with or without me. Lucas's chest felt tight. The morphine had worn off enough that he could feel the full weight of his emotions alongside the physical pain. I need time. We both need time to heal from this, physically and emotionally. Can we just focus on getting through recovery? On co-parenting Noah better? On figuring out what normal looks like now? Of course. Yes. I'm sorry, I shouldn't have. Don't apologize. I'm glad you told me. I just need to process everything. A nurse appeared in the doorway, apologetic but firm. I'm sorry, but Mr. Reed needs to get back to his room. Doctor's orders. No more than 20 minutes for this first visit. As Marcus wheeled Lucas toward the door, Maya called out, Lucas? He turned the wheelchair slightly to face her. I meant what I said. Thank you for my life, for Noah's mother, for being the kind of person who does this even when it's hard. Lucas nodded, emotion thick in his throat, and let Marcus wheel him back to his own floor. That evening, Noah finally came to visit. Sandra brought him during evening visiting hours, and Lucas could see his son's nervousness in the way he held Sandra's hand too tightly, in the way his eyes darted around the hospital room, taking in all the medical equipment. Hi, buddy, Lucas said, trying to sound more energetic than he felt. Come here. Noah approached the bed cautiously. Does it hurt? A little bit, but I'm getting better every day. The doctors say I'm doing great. Grandma said you gave Mommy one of your kidneys, that you're like a superhero. Lucas smiled. Not a superhero, just a dad who wanted to help. Noah climbed carefully onto the bed, mindful of Lucas's incision. He settled against Lucas's right side, the side that didn't hurt as much, and Lucas wrapped his arm around his son. The weight of Noah against him was simultaneously painful and comforting. I was scared, Noah admitted quietly. Grandma said you'd be okay, but I was still scared. Being scared is okay. I was scared too. Really? Really? But you know what helped? Knowing I was doing something important, something that mattered. Noah was quiet for a moment, processing this. Then, can I see Mommy too? Not tonight, buddy, but soon. She's getting better just like me. In a few days, when we're both stronger, you can visit both of us. They sat together in comfortable silence, Noah chattering occasionally about school and soccer and the new breakfast cereal Grandma had bought that was way better than the boring kind Dad usually got. Lucas listened, soaking in the normalcy of his son's concerns, grateful beyond measure that he'd survived the surgery and would be there for all these small, crucial moments. The next 2 days passed in a rhythm of slow healing. Lucas graduated from the wheelchair to walking short distances with help. The morphine pump was removed and replaced with oral pain medication. His appetite returned in small increments. Each milestone was minor but significant, proof that his body was adapting to its new reality. On the fourth day post-surgery, Dr. Patterson cleared him to go home. "You'll need to take it easy for at least 6 weeks," the doctor cautioned as he reviewed discharge instructions. "No lifting anything heavier than 10 pounds, no driving for 2 weeks, no strenuous activity until I clear you. Follow up with me in 1 week, then again in 4 weeks. Any signs of infection, any unusual pain, any complications, you call immediately." Sandra took notes, her expression serious. Lucas just nodded, exhausted by the prospect of 6 weeks of limited activity, but grateful to be leaving the hospital. The discharge process took hours. Paperwork, final instructions from nurses, prescriptions to fill, a last check from physical therapy. By the time Lucas was finally settled into his mother's car for the ride home, it was late afternoon. "Maya wanted to see you before you left," Sandra said as she navigated through the parking garage, "but her doctors thought it was too soon for her to have visitors all day." "How is she doing?" "Dr. Simmons gave me an update this morning. The kidney is functioning beautifully. Maya's regaining strength faster than expected. They think she'll be discharged in another 3 or 4 days." Lucas leaned his head against the car window, watching the city pass by. Seattle looked different somehow, sharper and more vivid than it had before surgery. Colors seemed brighter, details stood out. Or maybe it was just the heightened awareness that came from surviving something significant. "I've been thinking," Sandra said carefully, "about what happens after I go home. You're going to need help for a while, and Noah needs routine and stability. Have you thought about asking Maya's mother to come stay, or maybe—" "Mom, I'll be fine. Jennifer said she can help with Noah when you leave. I can manage the rest." "Lucas, you just had major surgery. Managing isn't the same as healing properly." "I know, but I don't want to ask for more help than I already have. Everyone's already done so much." Sandra was quiet for a moment, then said, "Your father used to do this. He used to refuse help even when he desperately needed it because he thought asking for support made him weak. It doesn't, you know. Letting people help you is actually a sign of strength." Lucas didn't respond, too tired to argue, and Sandra wisely let the subject drop. The apartment felt both familiar and strange when they arrived. Noah burst through the door from Jennifer's place within minutes of their arrival, his face lit up with joy. "Daddy's home!" Lucas lowered himself carefully onto the couch while Noah climbed up beside him, careful not to jostle his father's left side. Sandra disappeared into the kitchen to start dinner, giving them space. "I missed you so much," Noah said, curling against Lucas's right side. "Can you read to me tonight?" "I can read to you every night now, buddy. I'm not going anywhere." That evening, after Noah was tucked into bed and Sandra had retired to the guest room, Lucas sat alone in his living room and let himself feel the full weight of what he'd done. His left side ached despite the pain medication. His body felt weak and foreign. He couldn't pick up his son. He couldn't drive. He couldn't do a dozen ordinary tasks he'd always taken for granted. But Maya was alive. Her body was accepting his kidney. She was healing. His phone buzzed with a text message. "Maya, I heard you went home today. How are you feeling?" Lucas considered his response carefully before typing, "Tired, sore, but glad to be home." "How are you?" "Better every day. The nurses say I'm recovering faster than average. I think your kidney works harder than mine did." Despite everything, Lucas smiled. It's probably just relieved to be in a body that doesn't argue with it constantly. There was a pause, then, "Lucas, I've been doing a lot of thinking about us, about what comes next. When we're both healed, I'd like to talk, really talk, about being better co-parents, about giving Noah the stability he deserves. No pressure, no expectations, just honest conversation. I'd like that too. Thank you for everything. Sleep well." Lucas set his phone aside and leaned back against the couch cushions. Through the window, he could see the lights of the city, thousands of people living their lives, facing their own challenges and choices. Somewhere in a hospital room 2 miles away, Maya was probably settling in for the night, her body working to integrate the organ he'd given her. It was strange and profound, knowing a part of him was keeping her alive, knowing they were connected now in this permanent, intimate way. He'd given her blood and tissue and cellular memory, all the microscopic pieces that made up a functioning organ. The implications of that gift would take months, maybe years, to fully understand. But tonight, Lucas was just grateful they'd both survived, grateful that Noah would have his mother, grateful that the choice he'd made, terrifying as it had led to this outcome. Outside, rain began to fall, pattering against the windows in a gentle rhythm. Lucas closed his eyes and listened to it, letting the sound wash over him. Somewhere between the pain and the exhaustion and the complicated tangle of emotions he couldn't quite name, Lucas felt something he hadn't expected. Peace. Recovery was harder than Lucas had anticipated. The first week home felt like moving through thick water. Every task required twice the effort and 3 times the time it should have taken. Getting dressed exhausted him. Walking to the kitchen left him winded. The simplest acts of daily living became Everest-sized challenges that he had to conquer with gritted teeth and stubborn determination. Sandra stayed for 10 days, managing the household with quiet efficiency, while Lucas slowly regained his strength. She picked up Noah from school, prepared meals that Lucas could actually stomach, fielded phone calls from concerned friends and coworkers, and never once made Lucas feel like a burden. But on the 11th day, she had to return to Olympia for work obligations she could no longer postpone. "I can take more time off," she offered, standing in Lucas's kitchen with her packed suitcase by the door. "My principal will understand." "Mom, you've already done more than enough. Jennifer's just downstairs. I can manage." Sandra gave him the look only mothers can give, the one that sees through every deflection and polite lie. "Lucas, managing isn't thriving. Promise me you'll actually ask for help when you need it." "I promise." She hugged him carefully, mindful of his still tender incision, and kissed his cheek. "Call me every day. And if anything feels wrong, if you're in more pain than expected, if you need anything at all, I'll call. I promise." After she left, the apartment felt impossibly quiet. Noah was at school. The morning stretched ahead of Lucas like a desert he had to cross. He lowered himself onto the couch, exhausted from the effort of saying goodbye, and checked his phone. 3 missed texts from Maya. "Discharged today. Finally going home. The apartment feels empty but wonderful. My own bed, my own space, no nurses checking vitals every 2 hours. How are you doing? Your mom said she was heading home today. Do you need anything?" Lucas stared at the messages, his thumb hovering over the keyboard. What he needed was complicated. Help with Noah, someone to cook meals he didn't have to think about, assistance with laundry and grocery shopping and all the mundane tasks that suddenly felt insurmountable. But asking Maya for help felt wrong somehow, like it would shift the dynamic between them in ways he wasn't ready to navigate. Instead, he typed, "I'm good. Glad you're home. Rest and take care of yourself." Her response came quickly. "You too. Remember, no lifting, no driving, no being a hero, doctor's orders." Lucas smiled despite himself. "Yes, ma'am." The days developed their own rhythm. Lucas woke early, managed to dress himself with increasing ease, and was usually settled on the couch with coffee by the time Noah emerged sleepy-eyed from his bedroom. Jennifer came up most mornings to walk Noah to school, refusing Lucas's repeated thanks with cheerful dismissals. Lucas spent his days reading, attempting to work remotely on projects from the architectural firm, and taking short walks around the apartment complex as his strength gradually returned. Noah came home each afternoon full of stories about school, and they'd spend the evening together, Lucas helping with homework from the couch, then ordering takeout for dinner because cooking was still beyond his capabilities. After Noah went to bed, Lucas would sit in the quiet apartment and text with Maya. The conversation started superficially, updates on their respective recovery progress, discussions about Noah's upcoming school events, mundane exchanges about doctor's appointments and medication schedules. But gradually, over the course of 2 weeks, the texts became longer and more substantial. They talked about things they'd never properly discussed during their marriage, their fears, their regrets, the ways they'd both failed each other. "I think I spent our entire marriage trying to prove I was enough," Maya texted one night. "Enough of a wife, enough of a mother, enough of everything. And the harder I tried, the more I felt myself disappearing." Lucas read the message 3 times before responding. "I spent our marriage trying to provide security because I was terrified of failing you and Noah. But I turned stability into a cage without even realizing it. We were so young when we got married, 23 and 24. We thought love was enough to figure out the rest." "Love should have been enough," Lucas typed, then deleted it. He tried again. "We didn't know how to be married to each other. That doesn't mean we failed. It just means we weren't ready. Do you think we could have made it work?" If we'd tried harder? Lucas sat with that question for a long time. The honest answer was complicated. Maybe if they'd gone to counseling sooner, maybe if they'd communicated better, maybe if 100 small things had been different, but maybe not. Maybe some relationships were meant to teach you about yourself rather than last forever. I don't know, he finally wrote, but I think we're both better people now than we were then. We learned things we needed to learn, even if the learning was painful. Your kidney is teaching me things too, Maya responded. Every day I wake up without the exhaustion and sickness from kidney failure, I remember that you gave me this. That you chose to save my life even when I'd hurt you. That's not something I take lightly, Lucas. I know, but Maya, we can't build anything on guilt or obligation. If we're going to figure out how to be better for Noah, it has to come from a healthy place. I know, I'm just saying, I'm grateful, and I'm aware of what it cost you. 3 weeks post-surgery, Lucas had his first follow-up appointment with Dr. Patterson. Jennifer drove him to the hospital, entertaining him with stories about her daughter's increasingly elaborate schemes to avoid eating vegetables. In the examination room, Dr. Patterson reviewed Lucas's lab results with evident satisfaction. Kidney function is excellent. The remaining kidney has compensated beautifully. Your creatinine and GFR levels are exactly where we want them. How's the pain? Manageable. I'm down to ibuprofen during the day, only taking the prescription stuff at night. Good. And the incision? Lucas lifted his shirt. The surgical scar ran along his left side, red and angry-looking, but healing cleanly. Dr. Patterson examined it, pressed gently on the surrounding tissue, and nodded. Looks perfect. No signs of infection or complications. You're healing faster than average, actually. He sat back, meeting Lucas's eyes. You can start driving again. Gradually increase your activity level. Still no lifting over 20 pounds for another 3 weeks, but you can resume most normal activities. How are you emotionally? The question caught Lucas off guard. Emotionally? Kidney donation is physically demanding, but it's also psychologically complex. Some donors experience unexpected feelings, protectiveness toward the recipient, anxiety about the organ's function, even grief over the loss. It's normal to need time to process the experience. Lucas considered this. He'd been so focused on physical recovery that he hadn't examined his emotional state too closely. I think I'm okay. It's strange knowing a part of me is in someone else. But I made peace with it before the surgery. I don't regret it. That's good. But if you do start having complicated feelings, don't hesitate to reach out. We have counselors who specialize in working with living donors. After the appointment, Jennifer drove Lucas home and declined his invitation to come up for coffee. I have to pick up Mia from her piano lesson. But Lucas, you look good. Healthier than you did before the surgery, honestly. Whatever you're doing, keep doing it. That evening, Lucas texted Maya. Saw Dr. Patterson today. Got cleared to drive and increase activity. How was your follow-up? Dr. Simmons is thrilled with my progress. Kidney function at 90% and climbing. She said it's one of the best outcomes she's seen. Lucas, your kidney is overachieving. It always was competitive. Can I see you? I mean, in person. I know we've been texting, but I think we need to actually talk. Face to face. Lucas's heart rate picked up. He'd known this conversation was coming, had been preparing for it, but the reality of it still made him nervous. When? Tomorrow? I could come to your place after you drop Noah at school, or we could meet somewhere neutral if that's better. My place is fine. Come around 9. That night, Lucas lay awake longer than usual, his mind spinning through potential conversations and outcomes. What did Maya want to talk about? Their co-parenting arrangement? The strange new dynamic between them? The possibility of something more than friendship? He told himself not to project, not to hope for things he shouldn't want, but his heart wasn't listening to logic. Maya arrived at 9:07 the next morning, looking healthier than Lucas had seen her in months. Her color was back, the shadows gone from under her eyes, her posture straighter and more confident. She was wearing jeans and a soft blue sweater that Lucas remembered buying her for her birthday 3 years ago, back when they were still married. "Hi," she said when he opened the door. "Hi, come in." She stepped into the apartment she'd once shared with him, looking around at the familiar space with something like nostalgia in her eyes. Lucas had rearranged things after the divorce, moved furniture, painted walls, tried to make the space his own rather than a shrine to their failed marriage. But some things remained the same. The bookshelf she'd assembled, the coffee table they'd picked out together, the window where they used to sit and watch the rain. "Coffee?" Lucas offered. "Please." They moved to the kitchen, falling into the old rhythm of making coffee together. Lucas filling the machine while Maya got mugs from the cabinet where they'd always been kept. The domesticity of it was both comforting and painful. When they were settled on the couch with their coffee, a careful distance between them, Maya spoke first. "I've been thinking a lot about what you said, about not building anything on guilt or obligation. You're right, but I need you to understand that what I'm feeling isn't guilt, it's clarity." Lucas waited, letting her find her words. "Almost dying changes you," Maya continued. "It strips away all the bullshit, all the defenses and rationalizations and stories you tell yourself about why you made the choices you made. And when I was lying in that hospital bed, waiting to find out if your kidney would save my life, I had to face some hard truths about myself." "Maya, please, let me finish. I need to say this." She set her coffee down and turned to face him fully. "I left our marriage because I was scared. Not because you weren't enough or because I didn't love you, but because I was terrified of how much I needed you. I'd built this identity as an independent woman, someone who didn't need anyone, and then I married you and had Noah, and suddenly I needed you desperately, and that scared me more than I knew how to handle." Lucas felt his chest tighten. This was the conversation they should have had 3 years ago, before lawyers and custody agreements and the careful dismantling of a shared life. "So I picked fights," Maya said, her voice breaking slightly. "I created distance. I convinced myself we were incompatible when the truth was I was just running from intimacy. And by the time I realized what I was doing, I'd already destroyed us. The divorce felt like the only option because I'd made it the only option." "Why are you telling me this now?" "Because you saved my life, Lucas. Not just by giving me a kidney, but by showing me what actual love looks like. You had every reason to say no. Every reason to let me face the consequences of my choices. But you didn't. You gave me a part of yourself because it was the right thing to do, because Noah needed his mother, because some part of you still cared enough to save me even though I didn't deserve it." "Everyone deserves to live," Lucas said quietly. "Maybe. But not everyone has someone willing to sacrifice their own well-being to make that happen." Maya wiped at her eyes, frustrated with her tears. "I'm not asking you to take me back. I'm not asking for a second chance at our marriage. I know I burned that bridge, but I need you to know that I see you now. I see what I had and threw away, and I'm going to spend the rest of my life being grateful for it." Lucas's own eyes were burning. "Maya, you didn't throw me away. We both contributed to the end of our marriage. I was rigid and controlling and so focused on security that I forgot about joy. I turned our life into a checklist instead of an adventure. You're not the only one who failed. Maybe we both failed in our own ways. But Lucas, you also succeeded. You became an incredible father. You built a stable life for Noah. You learned how to be alone without being lonely. I just ran from one distraction to another, never dealing with why I'd sabotaged the best thing in my life." They sat in silence for a long moment, the weight of their shared history settling around them like a blanket. "What do you want from me?" Lucas finally asked. "What are you hoping for by telling me all this?" Maya took a shaky breath. "Honestly, I don't know. I know we can't go back. I know too much has happened, but I also know that this," she gestured between them, "this connection we have now, it's different than it was before. We're talking honestly. We're actually listening to each other. And I just keep thinking, what if we could build something new? Not the marriage we had, but something better. Something built on who we are now instead of who we were at 23. Lucas's heart was pounding. This was everything he'd told himself not to hope for, delivered directly into his living room on a Tuesday morning. "I'm scared," he admitted. "I'm scared of getting hurt again. I'm scared of confusing Noah. I'm scared of wanting this too much and having it fall apart. I'm scared too. But Lucas, I'm more scared of not trying. Of looking back in 10 years and wondering what might have happened if I'd been brave enough to fight for us. This isn't fighting for us. This is starting over. That's even harder. I know, but isn't it worth trying? We're better people now. We know what mistakes to avoid. We know what we need from each other." Lucas stood and walked to the window, needing space to think. Outside, the world was going about its business, cars passing, people walking, life continuing in its relentless forward motion. Everything in him wanted to say yes, wanted to take Maya's hand and agree to try, to build something new from the ashes of what they'd lost. But the part of him that had survived the divorce, that had learned to be whole on his own, that part was screaming caution. "I need time," he said without turning around. "This is too big, too important to rush into. We have Noah to think about. We have our own healing to finish, physically and emotionally. I can't just jump into this because it feels right in the moment." He heard Maya stand, felt her move closer. "I understand, and I'm not asking you to rush. I'm just asking you to consider it, to not close the door on the possibility." Lucas turned to face her. She was close enough that he could see the flecks of gold in her brown eyes, close enough that the familiar scent of her shampoo, jasmine and vanilla, triggered 1,000 memories. "The door isn't closed," he said softly, "but it's not wide open either. Can you accept that? Can you be patient while I figure out what I want?" "I can be patient. I owe you that much and more." They stood there, caught in the space between what was and what might be, until Maya finally stepped back. "I should go. Let you rest. Thank you for listening, for not just shutting me down." "Maya? For what it's worth, I'm glad you told me. I needed to hear it." After she left, Lucas returned to the couch and sat in the quiet of his apartment, his mind racing. The conversation had cracked open something he'd been keeping carefully sealed. The possibility of reconciliation, of trying again, of risking his heart on the woman who'd already broken it once. His phone buzzed. A text from Maya. "Thank you for being honest with me. Take all the time you need. I'm not going anywhere." Over the next 2 weeks, Lucas focused on rebuilding his strength and his life. He returned to work part-time, easing back into projects that had been waiting for him. His colleagues welcomed him back with careful concern, treating him like he'd survived a war rather than elective surgery. In a way, he supposed he had. Noah's routine stabilized with Lucas back to full parenting duties. They fell into their old patterns: breakfast together, homework at the kitchen table, bedtime stories that sometimes turned into conversations about bigger things than dragons and superheroes. "Mommy seems happier," Noah observed one night, curled against Lucas's right side while they read about a wizard who'd lost his wand. "She does, doesn't she? Is it because of the kidney you gave her?" "Partly, but I think it's also because she's learning to take better care of herself." Noah was quiet for a moment, thinking. "Do you still love Mommy?" Lucas's breath caught. "That's a complicated question, buddy. Adults always say that when something's hard." "You're right, they do." Lucas set the book aside, giving Noah his full attention. "I care about your mom very much. She's important to me. But love is complicated when you're a grown-up. Sometimes you can love someone and still not be able to live with them. But sometimes you can?" "Sometimes." "Why are you asking?" Noah shrugged, suddenly interested in the pattern on his pajamas. "I heard Mommy talking to Grandma on the phone. She said she wanted to try again with you, that she'd been stupid before." Lucas closed his eyes, processing this information. Of course Noah had overheard. Children always overheard the things you most wanted to protect them from. "How would you feel about that?" Lucas asked carefully. "If your mom and I tried to spend more time together? Would we all live together again, like before?" "I don't know, buddy. We'd have to take things very slowly, see if we can be good together. But it wouldn't happen right away, and it might not happen at all. Would that be okay?" Noah thought about this seriously. "I like how things are now. You're always here, and Mommy visits, and nobody's yelling. But I also remember when we were all together, and it was good, before the fighting started." "Me too." "So if you and Mommy can be together without fighting, that would be good. But if you can't, I want things to stay like this. I don't want everyone to be sad again." Lucas hugged his son, careful of his healing incision, overwhelmed by Noah's wisdom. "You're pretty smart. You know that?" "I know. I get it from you." That night, after Noah was asleep, Lucas texted Maya. "Noah knows you want to try again. He overheard your conversation with your mother." The response came immediately. "Oh God, is he upset? I didn't mean for him to find out that way. He's okay. He's processing, but Maya, we need to be really careful here. Whatever we decide, it affects him most of all. I know. What did he say? That he'd be okay with us trying as long as we don't fight. And if we can't make it work, he wants things to stay stable like they are now. There was a long pause before Maya's next message. He's wise beyond his years, he is, which is why we can't screw this up. If we're going to try, we have to be sure. We have to do it right. I understand. Lucas, I mean it. I'm willing to do whatever it takes. Counseling, taking things slow, proving to you that I've changed. Whatever you need. Lucas stared at his phone, his thumb hovering over the keyboard. What did he need? Time, space, proof that Maya's clarity wasn't just gratitude or guilt disguised as love. Proof that he could trust her with his heart again without losing himself in the process. Counseling would be good. For both of us, individually and maybe together, to learn how to communicate better. I'll start looking for a therapist tomorrow. Thank you for being open to this. I'm not promising anything, I know. Just the possibility is more than I deserve. 6 weeks post-surgery, Lucas had his final follow-up with Dr. Patterson. The surgeon pronounced him fully healed, cleared him for all normal activities, and released him from medical care with instructions to maintain annual checkups to monitor his remaining kidney. You're officially a success story, Dr. Patterson said, shaking Lucas's hand. How's Maya doing? Thriving. Her kidney function is nearly normal. Dr. Simmons is really pleased. That's wonderful. And how are you doing, really? Beyond the physical healing? Lucas considered the question. I'm figuring it out. One day at a time. That's all any of us can do. That evening, Lucas took Noah to visit Maya at her apartment, the first time they'd all been together outside of brief exchanges during custody handoffs since before the divorce. Maya had cooked dinner, and the three of them sat around her small dining table like they were playing at being a family again. But it wasn't playing, Lucas realized, as he watched Maya help Noah with his spaghetti, laughing as Noah got sauce on his nose. It was real. Tentative and fragile, but real. After dinner, while Noah was absorbed in a video game in the living room, Lucas helped Maya with the dishes. They worked in comfortable silence, falling into old patterns. He washed, she dried, both of them aware of the intimacy in the mundane task. This is nice, Maya said softly. The three of us together. It is. But Maya, we can't rush into anything just because it feels nice. We have to build slowly. I know. I've been seeing a therapist, by the way. Had my first session on Monday. She specializes in divorce recovery and family rebuilding. That's good. Really good. She said something that stuck with me. She said that sometimes people need to fall apart completely before they can rebuild into something stronger, that our divorce might have been necessary to get us to this place where we can actually be good for each other. Lucas set down the dish he was washing and turned to face her. Do you really believe that? Or is that just a way to make sense of the pain? Both, maybe. But Lucas, I'm not the same person who walked out 3 years ago. I've dealt with my fear of intimacy. I've learned how to be alone without running from myself. I've figured out who I am outside of being someone's wife or Noah's mother. And now, knowing who I am, I want to choose you. Not because I need you to complete me, but because I want to share my complete self with you. It was the most mature thing Maya had ever said to him. Lucas felt something shift in his chest. Not quite hope, not quite trust, but something like the possibility of both. I want that too, he admitted. But I need to get there at my own pace. Can you really be patient with that? I can. I will. I'll prove it to you. As Lucas drove home that night with Noah asleep in the back seat, he felt lighter than he had in months. The surgery scar on his side was just a scar now, a mark of something survived rather than a source of pain. His body had healed, and maybe, just maybe, his heart was starting to heal too. The possibility of a second chance with Maya felt terrifying and exhilarating in equal measure. But for the first time since the divorce, Lucas could imagine it, could see a path forward that didn't require forgetting the past or pretending it hadn't hurt, but instead acknowledged the pain and chose to move beyond it. He wasn't there yet, but he could see it, and that was enough for now. The possibility of rebuilding became reality in small, deliberate increments over the following months. Lucas and Maya didn't rush toward reconciliation like people desperate to reclaim what they'd lost. Instead, They approached each other like architects designing a structure meant to withstand storms, carefully, methodically, with attention to every foundation stone. They started with family dinners once a week, always at Maya's apartment because Lucas needed the boundary of being able to leave if things became overwhelming. Noah would help Maya cook while Lucas set the table, and they'd eat together with conversation that felt increasingly natural. They talked about work and Noah's school projects and neighborhood gossip, building comfort in the ordinary before attempting anything profound. After 3 weeks of dinners, Maya suggested they try therapy together. Not couples counseling, she clarified quickly when Lucas hesitated. Just a few sessions to help us communicate better, to make sure we're not repeating old patterns. Lucas agreed, though the idea made his stomach knot with anxiety. They found a therapist named Dr. Rachel Kim, who specialized in divorce recovery and co-parenting relationships. Her office was in a converted house in Capitol Hill, decorated with soft colors and comfortable furniture designed to put people at ease. In their first session, Dr. Kim sat across from them with a notepad and kind, observant eyes. "Tell me what brings you here." Maya looked at Lucas, silently asking permission to speak first. He nodded. "We were married for 6 years," Maya began. "Divorced 3 years ago. We have a 6-year-old son. 4 months ago, I was in a serious car accident that destroyed both my kidneys. Lucas donated one of his kidneys to save my life, even though we were divorced, and now we're trying to figure out if we can build something new together." Dr. Kim's expression didn't change, though Lucas saw interest flicker in her eyes. "That's quite a journey. Lucas, what would you add to Maya's summary?" Lucas took a breath. "I'd add that our divorce was painful for both of us. We hurt each other in ways we're still processing, and I'm scared that trying again might just lead to the same outcome, except this time our son is old enough to really understand what's happening." "That's a valid fear," Dr. Kim said. "Maya, how do you respond to that?" "I understand it completely. I'm the one who initiated the divorce. I'm the one who gave up on us. Lucas has every reason to be cautious. All I can do is show him through consistent action that I've changed, that I've dealt with the issues that made me run before." Over the next hour, Dr. Kim guided them through exercises in active listening and emotional honesty. She asked them to identify their core needs in a relationship, to articulate their fears without blame, to imagine what a healthy partnership between them might look like. "I need to feel secure," Lucas said when it was his turn. "Not just financially, but emotionally. I need to know that when things get hard, we're going to work through them instead of one of us running away." "I need to feel seen," Maya responded. "Not just as Noah's mother or as your partner, but as myself. I need space to have my own interests and identity without feeling like I'm being selfish." Dr. Kim nodded. "Those needs aren't incompatible. In fact, they're complementary. Security and individuality can coexist in a healthy relationship. The question is whether you're both willing to do the work to create that balance." They left that first session exhausted, but cautiously optimistic. In the car, Maya turned to Lucas. "That was hard." "Yeah, but good hard, I think. Are you okay with continuing? I know it's a lot." Lucas thought about it. The session had cracked open vulnerabilities he'd been protecting, forced him to articulate fears he'd been avoiding. But it had also created a space for honest conversation without the weight of their shared history crushing every word. "I'm okay with it. But Maya, I need you to understand, therapy doesn't guarantee we'll end up together. It just helps us figure out if we should." "I know. And whatever we figure out, at least we'll know we tried. We'll know we did it right this time." They attended therapy every other week, slowly building a new language for their relationship. Dr. Kim taught them techniques for managing conflict, for expressing needs without accusations, for creating space in a partnership without creating distance. Between sessions, they practiced. Sometimes it worked beautifully. Sometimes they fell back into old patterns and had to consciously reset. 3 months into their tentative rebuilding, Lucas took Maya to dinner, just the two of them, no Noah as buffer, at a small Italian restaurant they'd loved during their marriage. It was Maya's idea, but Lucas had agreed, recognizing it as a test. Could they exist together in romantic context without the safety net of their son or the structure of therapy? They sat across from each other in a corner booth, candlelight flickering between them, and for the first few minutes, the silence was awkward. Then Maya laughed. "This is ridiculous. We've been married, divorced, shared a child, and you've literally given me an organ. Why am I nervous about dinner?" Lucas felt his own tension break. "Because dinner is a date. Dates have expectations. We're trying to figure out if we can be romantic again, and that's terrifying." "It really is." Maya reached across the table and took his hand. Her fingers were warm, her grip confident but not demanding. "So, let's not think of this as a date. Let's just think of it as two people who care about each other having a meal together." "Two people who care about each other," Lucas repeated. "I can work with that." They ordered wine and pasta and fell into conversation that surprised them both with its ease. They talked about Lucas's latest project at work, a sustainable housing development that was pushing his creative boundaries. They talked about Maya's promotion at the marketing firm where she'd been working since the divorce. They discovered they'd both been reading the same book, a literary thriller Maya had recommended months ago, and spent 20 minutes debating the ending. Somewhere between the main course and dessert, Lucas realized he was genuinely enjoying himself, not just tolerating the date or white-knuckling through discomfort, but actually having fun. Maya made him laugh with a story about her disastrous attempt to fix her leaking kitchen sink. He made her laugh describing Noah's recent obsession with dinosaurs and his insistence that they were just misunderstood. "He gets that from you," Maya said, smiling. "The believing everyone deserves a second chance thing." "I don't believe everyone deserves a second chance. Just the people who've genuinely changed and are willing to do the work." "Am I one of those people?" The question was vulnerable, stripped of defensiveness. Lucas met her eyes. "I think you are. I'm watching you prove it every day." They shared tiramisu, trading the fork back and forth, and Lucas was struck by the intimacy of the gesture. When they'd been married, they'd shared desserts without thinking about it. Now, every shared bite felt weighted with meaning, a small declaration of trust. Walking to the car, Maya slipped her hand into Lucas's. He allowed it, letting their fingers intertwine, feeling both the strangeness and the familiarity of her touch. "Thank you for tonight," she said as they reached his car, "for being willing to try this. Thank you for being patient while I figure out how to trust again." Maya stepped closer, and Lucas's heart rate picked up. She was going to kiss him. He could see the intention in her eyes, in the way she angled her body toward his. Part of him wanted it desperately. Part of him wanted to run. She seemed to read his hesitation because she stopped just before closing the distance, giving him the choice. Lucas closed the gap. The kiss was tentative and brief. Nothing like the passionate kisses of their early marriage, but it was real. It was a beginning. When they separated, Maya's eyes were bright with unshed tears. "I've missed you. I've missed us. I've missed us too. The good version of us, anyway. We can be that again. We can be even better." Lucas wanted to believe her. Standing in the parking lot with the taste of tiramisu and possibility on his lips, he almost did. Noah noticed the shift in his parents' relationship with the perceptiveness only children possess. One evening, while Lucas was helping him with math homework, Noah looked up from his worksheet and asked, "Are you and Mommy dating?" Lucas set down the pencil he'd been using to demonstrate long division. "What makes you ask that?" "You smile more when you talk about her, and last week when she picked me up, you hugged her for a really long time." "We're spending more time together," Lucas admitted carefully, trying to figure out if we can be good for each other again. "How do you feel about that?" Noah considered the question with his characteristic seriousness. "I like it when you're both happy, but I don't want you to get back together just because of me. That wouldn't be fair to anybody." Lucas pulled Noah onto his lap, marveling at his son's wisdom. "You're absolutely right. We wouldn't be doing this just for you. We're doing it because we want to try, because we think we might be able to make each other happy again. But buddy, if it doesn't work out, if your mom and I decide we're better as friends, we'll still both love you just as much. That part never changes." "I know, you tell me that all the time." "I tell you because it's important. You're the most important thing in both our lives." Noah hugged him fiercely. "I love you, Daddy." "I love you too, buddy, so much." 5 months after their first therapy session, Dr. Kim suggested they spend a weekend together as a family, not at either of their apartments, but somewhere neutral. A trial run at cohabitation without the pressure of it being permanent. They chose a rental cabin 2 hours outside Seattle, nestled in the mountains with hiking trails and a lake. Noah was ecstatic about the adventure. Lucas was terrified. Maya seemed determined to make it perfect. They arrived on a Friday evening, the cabin exactly as advertised, cozy and rustic with a stone fireplace and wide windows overlooking the forest. There were 2 bedrooms. Without discussing it, Lucas and Maya each chose separate rooms, maintaining the boundary they'd been carefully preserving. That first night, they made dinner together while Noah explored the property with the boundless energy of childhood. Maya chopped vegetables while Lucas managed the pasta, their movements synchronized from years of shared kitchen work. They'd done this 1,000 times during their marriage, but now each action felt deliberate, meaningful. "Remember when we used to cook together every night?" Maya said, her voice soft with memory. "Before Noah was born, when we'd both come home from work exhausted and we'd make these elaborate meals just because we enjoyed the process?" "I remember. Then Noah arrived, and cooking became about speed and efficiency. Everything became about speed and efficiency. We forgot how to just be with each other." Lucas drained the pasta, steam rising around him. "We were young parents trying to survive. We did the best we could with what we knew." "I know. I just wish I'd appreciated it more at the time. Appreciated you more." They ate dinner on the cabin's deck, watching the sun set behind the mountains while Noah chattered about all the things he wanted to do tomorrow. After Noah went to bed, Lucas and Maya sat by the fireplace with glasses of wine, the silence between them comfortable rather than strained. "This feels right," Maya said quietly. "The 3 of us together like this. It feels like home." Lucas didn't respond immediately. He was thinking about what home meant, not just a physical space, but a feeling of safety and belonging. He'd built a home for himself and Noah over the past 3 years. The question was whether there was room to expand that home to include Maya again. "It does feel right," he finally agreed. "But a weekend is different than everyday life. Real life has work stress and exhaustion and disagreements about whose turn it is to do dishes." "I know, but Lucas, we've been doing everyday life for 5 months now. We've had disagreements, we've had stress, and we've worked through it. We're not the same people who couldn't make it work before." "No, we're not." Lucas set down his wine glass and turned to face her fully. "Maya, I need to tell you something. I've been afraid to say it because saying it makes me vulnerable in a way that terrifies me. But you deserve honesty." She set down her own glass, giving him her full attention. "I'm falling in love with you again," Lucas said, the words feeling both enormous and simple. "Not the way I loved you when we were 23 and everything was new and exciting. I'm falling in love with the person you are now, the person who's done the work to understand herself, the person who shows up consistently for Noah, the person who's been patient while I've been cautious. And it scares me because I don't know if I can survive losing you again." Tears streamed down Maya's cheeks, catching the firelight. "You won't lose me, not this time. Lucas, I'm all in, completely. I'm not running away when things get hard. I'm not shutting down when I feel scared. I've learned how to stay and fight for what matters, and you matter. This matters." "How can you be sure? How can either of us be sure we won't fall back into old patterns?" "We can't be absolutely sure. But we can choose each other every day. We can communicate when things feel off instead of letting resentment build. We can remember what it cost us to get here. The divorce, the pain, you giving me a literal piece of your body to save my life. That kind of sacrifice doesn't let you take love for granted." Lucas reached for her hand, threading their fingers together. "I'm still scared." "Me too. But I'm more scared of not trying, of letting fear keep me from the best thing that ever happened to me." They sat by the fire until it burned low, talking about what trying would look like. Not rushing into moving back in together, but dating intentionally. Not hiding their relationship from Noah, but also not making promises they couldn't keep. Taking it one day at a time, building slowly, making sure the foundation was solid before constructing anything elaborate on top of it. The next morning, they hiked to the lake with Noah between them, holding both their hands. At the water's edge, Noah insisted they skip stones, and Lucas taught him the proper technique while Maya took photos on her phone. In the pictures she showed Lucas later, they looked like a family, not performing happiness, but genuinely experiencing it. That afternoon, while Noah napped exhausted from the morning's adventures, Lucas and Maya sat on the cabin's porch, with books neither of them was actually reading. "I've been thinking about what comes next," Maya said, setting her book aside. "After this weekend, I don't want to go backward. I don't want to pretend we're not moving towards something real." "What are you suggesting?" "I'm suggesting we stop calling this trying to figure things out and start calling it what it is. We're together. We're rebuilding our relationship with the intention of being partners again. I want to tell people that. I want to tell Noah that." Lucas's chest tightened, not with fear, but with the weight of the decision. That evening, after dinner, they sat Noah down in the cabin's living room. He looked between them with curious eyes, clearly sensing the importance of the moment. "Buddy, your mom and I want to talk to you about something," Lucas began. "You know we've been spending more time together, trying to figure out if we can make each other happy again." Noah nodded solemnly. Maya took over. "We wanted you to know that we've decided to be together, to date officially, and see if we can build a life together again. It's going to be slow. We're not moving in together right away or anything like that. But we wanted you to know that we're serious about this, about being a family again." Noah's face broke into the biggest smile Lucas had seen in months. "Really? You're going to get married again?" "We're not talking about marriage yet," Lucas clarified quickly. "We're just talking about dating and being together. But yes, we're serious about trying to make this work." "Does that mean we'll all live together someday?" "Maybe," Maya said. "If things keep going well, but that's a long way off. For now, things will stay mostly the same. We'll just be spending more time together as a family." Noah launched himself at both of them, wrapping his arms around them in an awkward three-way hug that made Lucas's heart swell. "I'm so happy. So, I've been hoping you'd get back together." "We know, buddy, but remember what Daddy said. We're not doing this just for you. We're doing it because we want to, because we love each other." "I know, but it's still the best thing ever." The drive back to Seattle on Sunday evening was quiet but comfortable. Noah fell asleep in the back seat, exhausted from 2 days of hiking and adventure. Maya's hand rested on Lucas's thigh as he drove, a casual intimacy they'd earned through months of careful rebuilding. "Thank you," Maya said softly, so as not to wake Noah, "for giving us this chance, for being brave enough to risk your heart again. Thank you for being worth the risk." Over the following months, they settled into a new rhythm. Lucas and Maya officially dated, real dates with restaurants and movies and long walks through the city. They also had family time with Noah, finding the balance between couple and parents. They continued therapy, using Dr. Kim's office as a safe space to work through conflicts before they could fester into resentments. 8 months after their first therapy session, almost a year after Lucas's kidney had saved Maya's life, they stood in Dr. Kim's office for what she'd suggested might be their final session. "I want to check in with both of you," Dr. Kim said. "When we started this process, you were two divorced people trying to figure out if reconciliation was possible. Where are you now?" Lucas and Maya exchanged glances. They'd discussed this question the night before, lying in Maya's bed after Noah had gone to sleep. They'd been staying over at each other's apartments more frequently, though they still maintained separate residences. The sleepovers felt like practice for something more permanent. "I think we're ready for the next step," Lucas said. "We've been talking about moving in together, actually combining our lives instead of just visiting each other's lives." Dr. Kim smiled. "That's wonderful. Are you both feeling confident about that decision?" "I am," Maya said. "We've done the work. We've proven we can communicate through conflict. We've built something new instead of trying to resurrect something dead. I'm ready." "Lucas?" He thought about the past year, the fear and hope, the therapy sessions and difficult conversations, the slow rebuilding of trust. He thought about Maya's consistency, about the way she'd shown up every day to prove her commitment. He thought about Noah's happiness and his own growing certainty that this was right. "I'm ready too. I'm still scared sometimes, but it's the kind of fear that comes with taking a meaningful risk, not the kind that warns you away from danger. This feels right. She feels right. We feel right." Dr. Kim nodded, satisfaction evident in her expression. "I want you both to remember that choosing to move in together doesn't mean the work is done. Relationships require constant tending, but you've both demonstrated the skills and commitment necessary to maintain a healthy partnership. I'm proud of what you've accomplished." They left the session holding hands, stepping out into a bright Seattle afternoon. Lucas felt lighter than he had in years, as though some weight he'd been carrying since the divorce had finally been set down. "Should we tell Noah tonight?" Maya asked. "About moving in together?" "Let's wait until we've actually found a place. No point getting his hopes up until we have concrete plans." Finding an apartment that worked for all three of them took 6 weeks. They needed space for Noah to have his own room, space for Lucas to have a home office, space for Maya's photography equipment that had become her serious hobby during their separation. They needed to be near Noah's school and both their workplaces. They needed it to feel like a fresh start rather than a return to old patterns. They found it in a 3-bedroom apartment in Fremont, with large windows and a small balcony and enough closet space that they wouldn't be constantly in each other's way. The neighborhood was vibrant and family-friendly, with parks and restaurants and a farmer's market on weekends. Standing in the empty living room during their first walkthrough, Lucas could see their life there. Furniture they'd choose together, photos they'd take as a family, ordinary moments that would build into a shared history. "This is it," Maya said, her voice full of certainty. "This is our home." Lucas pulled her close, kissing the top of her head. "Yeah, this is home." They told Noah that evening over pizza at their favorite restaurant. His reaction was predictably enthusiastic. He wanted to know if he could paint his room blue, if they could get a dog, if this meant he didn't have to pack a bag every time he switched between houses. "Yes to blue," Lucas said. "We'll discuss the dog. And yes, no more packing bags. Everything you need will be in one place." "With both of you there," Noah clarified. "With both of us there," Maya confirmed. Moving day was chaos, boxes and furniture and Noah alternating between helpful and hilariously underfoot. Lucas's mother drove up from Olympia to help, and Jennifer came from their old building with her daughter to pitch in. They ordered too much takeout and assembled furniture with varying degrees of success. By the time everyone left and Noah was asleep in his new blue bedroom, Lucas and Maya collapsed onto their couch. The couch they'd chosen together, in the apartment they'd chosen together, in the life they were choosing together. "We did it," Maya said, her head on Lucas's shoulder. "We actually did it." Lucas wrapped his arm around her, his hand resting on her side where his kidney now lived, keeping her healthy and strong. "We did. Are you happy?" He thought about the question. Happiness had seemed impossible a year ago, when he'd been lying in a hospital bed recovering from surgery, uncertain of everything except that he'd done the right thing. Now, sitting in their shared home with their son asleep down the hall and the woman he loved in his arms, happiness felt like the most natural thing in the world. "I'm happy," he said. "Are you?" Deliriously. Terrifyingly. Completely. They sat in comfortable silence, listening to the sounds of their new neighborhood, distant traffic, a dog barking, the hum of their refrigerator, ordinary sounds of an ordinary life, exactly what they'd fought so hard to build. 3 months after moving in together, on a Saturday morning while Noah was at a friend's birthday party, Maya found Lucas in the kitchen making coffee. She wrapped her arms around him from behind, pressing her cheek against his back. "I have something for you," she said. Lucas turned to face her, curious. Maya pulled a small wrapped box from her pocket and handed it to him. "It's not my birthday. It's not any occasion I can think of." "Just open it." Inside the box was a simple silver band, a man's ring, elegant and understated. Lucas looked up at Maya, his heart suddenly pounding. "Before you panic," she said quickly, "this isn't a proposal. I know we're not ready for that yet, and when we are, I want us to decide together. This is something else." She took the ring from the box and showed him the inside, where something was engraved. Lucas tilted it to the light and read the inscription. "One heart, twice saved." His throat tightened with emotion. "The day you gave me your kidney, you saved my life," Maya said, her own eyes bright with tears. "But you also saved my heart. You showed me what real love looks like. Not the romantic comedy version, but the messy, complicated, choose-each-other-every-day version. I wanted you to have something that represents that. What we've survived. What we've built." Lucas slipped the ring onto his right hand. It fit perfectly. "It's beautiful, thank you. There's one for me, too." She pulled out a matching ring with the same inscription. I figured we've been through enough together to deserve some kind of symbol, even if we're not ready for wedding rings yet. Lucas pulled her close, holding her tight against his chest, where she could feel his heartbeat, the same heart that had chosen to save her, that had chosen to forgive her, that had chosen to love her again despite every reason to protect itself. I love you, he said into her hair. I love who you are now. I love what we're building. I love that we're brave enough to try this again. I love you too, so much. Thank you for giving us a second chance. They stood in their kitchen holding each other, both wearing rings that symbolized a love that had died and been resurrected, that had been broken and carefully mended, that had learned to be stronger in the broken places. That evening, when Noah came home from the party sugar high and excited, he noticed the rings immediately. What are those? He asked, pointing at Lucas's hand. Your mom got us matching rings, Lucas explained, to celebrate us being a family again. Noah examined both rings carefully, reading the inscription with Lucas's help. One heart, twice saved. What does that mean? Maya knelt down to Noah's level. It means that Daddy saved my heart twice. Once with his kidney, and once by loving me enough to give us another chance. And it means that our family's heart was saved twice too, once when we learned from our mistakes, and once when we decided to try again. Noah thought about this seriously. I like that. It's like we all get a second chance. Oh, exactly like that, Lucas said. 6 months later, on a clear autumn evening with the Seattle skyline visible from their balcony, Lucas made coffee while Maya put Noah to bed. He could hear her reading a bedtime story, her voice rising and falling with dramatic flair that made Noah giggle. The sound filled their home with warmth and life. When she emerged from Noah's room, Lucas had 2 mugs of coffee waiting and a question he'd been rehearsing for weeks. Come sit with me, he said, gesturing to the balcony. They settled into the outdoor chairs they'd bought together, wrapped in blankets against the autumn chill, sipping coffee and watching the city lights. I've been thinking, Lucas began, about us, about where we are and where we're going. Maya waited, patient as she'd learned to be. We've been living together for 9 months. We've been officially together for over a year. We've done the work. We've proven we can make this work. And Maya, I don't want to just be dating you anymore. I don't want to just be living together. He set down his coffee and pulled out a small velvet box he'd been carrying in his pocket for 3 days, waiting for the right moment. I want to marry you again. Not because we're trying to recapture what we lost, but because we've built something new, something better, something worth making permanent. Maya's hands flew to her mouth, tears already streaming down her face. I want to stand in front of our family and friends and promise to choose you every day, to communicate even when it's hard, to stay when things get difficult, to be your partner in building a life that makes us both happy. Maya Reed, will you marry me? Again? She was nodding before he even finished the question. Yes. Yes, absolutely yes. Lucas slipped the ring onto her finger, not the ring from their first marriage, which they'd both returned during the divorce, but a new ring for their new beginning. She kissed him with the intensity of someone who understood exactly what they'd almost lost and how precious it was to get it back. When they finally separated, both laughing and crying, Maya said, I can't believe we're doing this, getting married again after everything. We're not the same people who got married the first time. We know what we're choosing now. We know what it costs and what it's worth. It's worth everything, Maya said. You're worth everything. They told Noah the next morning over breakfast. His reaction was to jump up from his chair and do a victory dance around the kitchen, chanting, I get to be in a wedding, until they were all laughing too hard to eat. The second wedding was nothing like the first. They'd been 23 and 24 the first time, full of romantic ideals and expensive choices funded mostly by credit cards. They'd invited 200 people to a venue they couldn't afford, stressed themselves into exhaustion over details that didn't matter, and started their marriage financially stretched and emotionally depleted. This time, they kept it small. Just immediate family and close friends in Lucas's mother's backyard in Olympia on a sunny Saturday in May. Noah served as ring bearer with profound seriousness. Lucas's brother officiated. Maya's mother, finally back from her extended cruise, cried through the entire ceremony. When it came time for vows, Lucas and Maya faced each other holding hands, and Lucas spoke from his heart rather than from memorized words. The first time we got married, I promised to love you forever. I meant it then, but I didn't understand what it meant. I didn't know that forever includes heartbreak and healing. That love means choosing someone even when they've hurt you. That marriage is built not in the easy moments, but in the hard ones, when you have to decide whether to stay and fight or walk away. He paused, his voice thick with emotion. You gave me a second chance to understand what forever really means. And I'm promising you now, I'll choose you in the hard moments. I'll communicate when I'm scared. I'll stay when things get difficult. I'll love you with the wisdom of someone who knows what it's like to lose you and refuses to take you for granted. This is my forever promise, made with full understanding of what it requires. Maya's tears fell freely as she spoke her own vows. I promised you forever once and broke that promise. It's the deepest regret of my life. This time, I promise you truth. I promise to tell you when I'm scared instead of running. I promise to ask for what I need instead of expecting you to read my mind. I promise to appreciate the security you provide instead of resenting it. I promise to be a partner who shows up, who does the work, who earns your trust every single day. You saved my life, Lucas. You gave me a second chance at living. I'm going to spend the rest of that life making sure you never regret it. When they kissed, their friends and family erupted in applause. Noah cheered the loudest, proud beyond measure that his parents had found their way back to each other. The reception was simple. Barbecue and beer in Sandra's backyard, a playlist instead of a DJ, Noah leading the dancing with uninhibited joy. Lucas watched Maya laugh with old friends, watched her mother hold her like she'd never let go, watched Noah spin in circles until he was dizzy and delighted. This was their second chance, their hard-won, carefully built, completely earned second chance. Late in the evening, when most of the guests had left and Noah was asleep on Sandra's couch, Lucas and Maya stood in the backyard under strings of lights, swaying to quiet music. We did it, Maya whispered. We actually made it. We did. And we're going to keep making it every day. Every day, she agreed. They danced in the soft glow of evening, two people who had loved and lost and learned and loved again. The scar on Lucas's side where they'd taken his kidney was hidden under his shirt, but he could feel it, a permanent reminder of the choice he'd made, the sacrifice that had led to this moment. Some might say giving Maya his kidney had been too much, that he'd risked too much for someone who'd left him. But Lucas knew better. That kidney had saved more than Maya's life. It had saved their family. It had proven that love could be bigger than hurt, that forgiveness could be stronger than resentment, that second chances were worth the risk. One heart, twice saved. The inscription on their rings was more than a romantic gesture. It was their truth, complicated and painful and ultimately beautiful. As the last song ended and Maya rested her head on Lucas's shoulder, he thought about the journey that had brought them here. The divorce that had shattered them. The accident that had nearly destroyed Maya. The surgery that had bound them together in a way deeper than marriage vows. The slow, careful rebuilding of trust. The choice to love again, wiser and braver than before. They were married again. They were a family again. But more importantly, they were whole, individually and together. They'd learned that loving someone didn't mean losing yourself, that security didn't mean stagnation, that staying didn't mean settling. They'd learned how to be married. Finally, after all these years, they'd figured it out. And that, Lucas thought as he held his wife close under the stars, was worth every moment of pain it had taken to get here. Their second chance wasn't just about romance or redemption. It was about growth, about becoming people worthy of the love they were choosing, about building a foundation strong enough to withstand whatever storms might come. The future stretched ahead of them, uncertain as any future is. But they would face it together, Lucas and Maya and Noah, a family twice broken and twice mended, stronger in all the places they'd learned to heal. And that was more than enough. It was everything.